All right, so being 7 o'clock, I call to order the Lancaster Zoning Board of Appeals. Start off with a roll call vote. Roll call attendance, not vote, sorry. Frank Sullivan.
Yes.
Gene Rich.
Yes.
Dennis Hubbard.
Here.
Michael Bray.
Here.
Eric Jacobowitz. Not here. And then Rob Alex here. So the first item on the agenda is to approve meeting minutes. We'll start off with the meeting minutes of February 22nd.
I'm going to make a motion to approve the minutes of February 22nd as printed.
Second that.
Okay, motion by Gene Rich, second by Frank Sullivan. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll move to a roll call vote. Help me out with this here. So,
You, Dennis, Mike, well, Mike can't.
no, Mike can't. So it's Frank Sullivan. Roll call. Okay. So yes, Gene Rich.
Yes, Dennis.
Dennis Hubbard.
Yes.
Rob Alex, yes, that's 4-0. Alright, so next is the meeting minutes of March 28th.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of March 28th as written.
Is it here for that? I don't know if it's here for that one. That's the one I've watched it now.
You were, yeah.
Well, you're
absolutely.
certified. I mean, you.
I signed the paper and everything.
Yeah. So yeah. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alright, so motion by Gene Rich, second by Frank Sullivan. Any discussion? Asking for any discussion, hearing none. So go Frank Sullivan.
Yeah.
Gene Rich.
Yes.
Rob Alex, yes. Dennis Hubbard.
Yes.
Okay, so it's a 4-0 vote on meeting minutes of March 28th. April 25th, 2024.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of April 25th as printed.
I'll second that.
That's a motion by Gene Rich, second by Frank Sullivan, and Michael was at that.
Not
No,
yet.
not
Nope.
that. So any discussion? Hear none. Go Frank Sullivan.
Yes.
Gene Rich.
Yes.
Dennis Hubbard.
Yes.
And Rob Alex, yes, that's 4-0 for the meeting minutes of April 25th. May 23rd.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of May 23rd as written.
I'll second that.
Motion by Gene Rich, second by Frank Sullivan.
Yes.
Go to a roll call vote. So Frank Sullivan,
Yes.
Gene Rich,
Yes.
Dennis Hubbard,
Yes.
and myself. So Rob Alex, yes. So 4-0 on those meetings. It's May 23rd. June 25th. June was approved last month,
Yeah.
correct? Okay.
So 7/18 and 7/25.
27 is done. 7/18. 7/18 minutes. I just, into the 40B section, on Neck Road, like, Attorney Costa spoke of waivers and had suggestions. Attorney Alvin spoke of a way the building could be modified. How, what? Just, I think we need a little more into the minutes than just they spoke, but don't tell us what they spoke about. So
Okay,
I think I'd kind of like to table the July 18th for more meat into the minutes.
I'm trying to find the sweet spot.
I know.
Put in the minutes and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think the details in particular we talked about there, right, there were some significant changes at that
Yeah.
point, so I think we need to capture that.
so I'm gonna make a motion that we table 7/18.
Okay,
Can you send me something in an email or anything, just something to?
Sure, I'll go back into my notes and I'll send you what I have,
Yeah.
okay?
and it's 7:25. The other ones.
7/25, I think those were good. Sure.
But you were remote. I thought you were remote, you were digital.
I was briefly.
Oh,
Didn't know if I could make it.
okay. That's all right.
So I'll make a motion, we move to 7/25.
I think there was something, I think.
Oh, is there something?
It's, there's some detailed stuff that I think is missing.
Okay,
from those as
all right,
well.
so then I'll make a
Unfortunately,
motion
I
to
don't have
table.
those. Okay.
Okay, the 725.
I think just gives us another chance to review, and I think it's, again, it's similar to the 718, and we'll get more details, so we'll table those two.
Alright, so again, in the process, trying to have Roz do them as soon as possible. Get, and then get back to her, she makes my motion, then she sends them back to you guys, hopefully in enough time to get those back.
I think I had sent through some stuff, I hadn't seen anything back as of yet.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so,
Like, I don't get anything back either, other than they're on, all of a sudden on,
well, that's, yeah,
yeah, so
I
it's
think-
So
which also she didn't make the changes that were, okay, I got that.
my ask would be to have them, right, I get putting them on the website, but send them back to us directly, so then we can understand that these things have been incorporated, and then we know that we're all working off the same page. I think that's the best way to do it. I think the quick turnaround was great, I think that we can, address them quickly. And then I think just knowing, sending it back, hey, this is got the incorporated changes based on,
Okay.
yep, I think that's the best way to do it. Okay. So the next item on the agenda, I know we have the continuation of the public hearing for 13 Neck Road first, I think, time to give everybody time, I'd like to move, if it's okay with the applicant, move that to our last item, just so we can get through the other, we have 3 items on the agenda tonight, if that's okay with you.
Okay, I mean, my section is gonna be brief, but,
Yeah, I think we just got a lot of details, but I think for the sake of, let's just.
Very good.
That's okay.
That's all.
Thank you for your understanding. All right, so we'll go to what's second item on the agenda, which is 11 Kinnear Ave. So this is, we should put in, that's verbatim from the hearing, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so one less thing I have to click through again. So, the Lancaster Zoning Board of Appeals will hold a public hearing via Zoom and in the National Meeting Room, Lancaster Town Hall, second floor, Prescott Building, 701 Main Street, Lancaster, Mass. On Thursday, August 22nd, 2024 at 7 p.m. to hear and act upon the following matter. Petition by Jocelyn Montana. My apologies if I said that incorrectly. Property owner for the following: request for a special permit pursuant to the Town of Lancaster zoning bylaws 220-51A to allow for a proposed shed to be attached to the rear of a legally non-conforming house to extend further into the rear yard setback. The purpose of the shed is to house a well, water storage tank, and water filter. The proposed site is located at 11 Kinnear Ave, is in the residential district, and is identified in the assessor's map at 010 parcel 87. Copy of the petition and the accompanying documents are on file at the Prescott Building, Community Development and Planning Office, 701 Main Street, Lancaster. The office can be reached at 978-365-3326, extension 1074. And this was published in the Telegram Gazette. Robert Alex, Chair. You can tell it's been a long day already. Can't speak. So do we have somebody from the applicant looking to present? If you want to come up to the podium, just state your name, address, obviously we know it's 11 Kinnear, but.
Yep.
And just talk about the project.
I'm Jocelyn Montana, and I live at 11 Kinnear Ave, and I just moved in, and we had to dig a new well, and I have nowhere to store the well water storage and water filter, and I need a housing for it. So, and it makes sense for it to be a heated room. Then I put it in. The house itself is only 600 feet, very small. So I'm the only place to build the housing for it violates the zoning law because it's close to the edge of the property. The other sides of the home don't work because there's a septic field and then the other sides are also too close to the driveway from the house. So it makes sense to put it in the back of the house.
how close is your addition to the back lot line?
Just under 12 feet with the, before or after the addition?
No, from your addition to your back lot line. How many?
Just under 12 feet.
Okay. So you got your septic tank, maybe property.
The septic tank is on another side of the house.
Your septic field is on the other side. What's this 100
Oh, yeah.
gallon? I don't know, this is what I'm looking at, maybe you can help me. So this is your addition right here,
Yes.
this is your septic tank,
Okay,
okay, and then this is your back property.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, from here to here is 11 feet, 8 inches.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Oh, just for record, two voting members with Frank Sullivan, Gene Rich, Rob Alex, Dennis Hubbard, Michael Bray.
Yeah.
So the new well is on the on like the easterly side of the property, about 51 feet from the side of the house. Is that correct?
It's gotta be this one over here, yeah.
Yeah. So this one
This
here.
is the new well.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the old well.
Okay.
And this has to be attached to the house because it has
For heating.
For you.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's no basement. The attic is not a proper functional space.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Where's Kinnear at? This is Kinnear down here.
Yes.
Dennis or Michael, any questions, comments on your side?
No.
No comments on this one.
I know we did receive, and I'll go to the public for any comment next, but Melissa Gravel, again, my apologies. If I mispronounce the name, God knows people get Alex wrong and call me Alex all the time. So my apologies. So we did get a note from Melissa, who's at 31 Spec Pond Ave, in support of this. So could read it in the notes. Hope this email finds you well. I received a notice. Hey, Dennis. I received notice regarding Jocelyn Montana's request for appeal, which is not really an appeal concerning her property. She said, I'm not able to attend the hearing on August 22nd, therefore want to write a note of offering my full support in favor of Jocelyn's request. As you're aware, the neighborhood Spec Pond does not have access to town services, public water, building, etc. So support from a neighbor as well. So I'll open up to the public if anyone from the public has any comments in regard to just this hearing. Any hands raised online at all?
We'll see.
I think any comments in regards to just this hearing from the public, if any? Doesn't look like we have any.
Online as well.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
Second that. Motion closed by Gene Rich. Second by Frank Sullivan. We have a motion to approve.
Yep. I'll make a motion that we approve the special permit for 220-51A for 11 Kinnear Ave.
Oh, sorry, we should vote.
Oh,
My apologies,
that's
Greg.
right.
Thank you.
We vote close.
So Frank Sullivan, Gene Rich.
Yes.
Dennis Hubbard.
Yes.
Michael Bray.
Yes.
Rob Alex, yes, so motion to close 5-0. All right. So back to the
I'll make a
original.
motion that we approve the special permit for 11 Kinnear Ave. Special permit under 220-51 to allow the proposed shed to be attached to the rear of the non-conforming house.
I'll second that.
Motion second by Frank. Let's move the session around the motion.
The set size of the shed
6x8 or 4x8.
in the.
And not,
That's what it's.
So as a condition?
Yeah.
5 by 8.
5 by 8 shed.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's
And then
design.
5 by 8. Yes.
Yep.
okay, So Frank Sullivan, Gene Rich,
Yes,
Dennis Hubbard.
Yes.
Michael Bray,
Yes.
and Rob Alex, yes. All right. So that's approved by nothing. So, what will happen next? Brian will write up the, special permit. Within the next 14 days, we'll sign it, and then we'll file it with the town clerk, at which point there's a 20-day appeal period. Once that's done, we'll notify, or Brian will notify you, the town clerk will. Then you file it with the registry of deeds, and then you can pull your building permit. So, all right, thank you.
Any questions, Jocelyn, feel free to call me.
Joe.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
No, you're not in my way, right?
Everything
It'd be easy for you.
Alright, so next on the public hearing notice is 115 Beach Point Road, application for special permit. The Lancaster Zoning Board of Appeals will hold a public hearing via Zoom and in the Nashway Meeting Room, Lancaster Town Hall, second floor, Prescott Building, 701 Main Street, Lancaster, Mass. On Thursday, August 22nd at 7 p.m. to hear and act upon the following matter. Petition by Paul Dow, petitioner, 115 Beach Point Road, Lancaster, Mass. 01523 for the following request. Request for a special permit pursuant to the town of Lancaster's zoning bylaw use regulation schedule 220-8.2D, boarding and daycare for more than 2 animals within the primary residential structure. Proposed site is located at 115 Beach Point Road, Lancaster, Mass. Is zoned in a district identified in the town of Lancaster zoning bylaw as residential and is identified by the town assessor as map 46 parcel 18. Copies of the petition and accompanying documents are on file at the Prescott Building, Community Development and Planning Office, 701 Main Street, Lancaster, Mass. The office can be reached at 978-365-3326, extension 1074. Robert Alex, Chair, Lancaster Zoning Board of Appeals. So do we have somebody from the applicant to present? Yes. Perfect. Just come up, state your name and address. And the voting members for this would be Frank Sullivan, Gene Rich, Rob Alex, Dennis Hubbard, Michael Bray.
I'm Paul Dow with 115 Beach Point Road, Lancaster. Basically, I'm trying
can
to.
you say your last name again, please?
Paul Dow. D-O-W. So I've been working at a dog daycare for the last 2.5 years. Before that, I worked in special ed for 24 years with kids. And so I've been working at the daycare for the last 2.5 years. My parents are, in their 80s now. They're having some difficulties with age. So all I'm looking to do is just be at the house and do a small daycare, 6 to 10 dogs. It's all my yard. It's all fenced in, backyard. It's set off the road. The house is built into a hill, so it's, the dogs are inside. I just use the basement, it's a nice walkout basement. So they're inside. There's a nice play area outside for them. So there's no, as far as barking and stuff, if they start barking, I just bring them inside. I have all the skills to work with the dogs. So like I said, I'm just looking for just run, 6 to 10 dogs out of the house just to stay home with my parents, take care of them, and earn, so some kind of income so I can be able to do that.
Thank you.
And I'm just looking for a nice social dog. I do meet and greets with dogs to make sure they're appropriate, well socialized. Certain dogs that's really take.
Open up to the board for any questions.
So you don't plan on continuing to work at the daycare? You plan on being at your parents' house
Yes.
24/7?
Yeah, between me and my sister, we tried to figure it out. She's taking care of all the healthcare and finances, and I'm hoping to be at the house, to, just be with them because they've both fallen multiple times now. And just cook and clean and just do all that, like the daily stuff.
In your backyard abuts a pond,
Yes.
so it goes, your house sits here and it comes down.
Yeah, it's like the house, the road's up here and the driveway comes downhill. The house is set back here.
Yeah.
And then it's just kind of more flat. It's not really a hill to the pond.
How large of an area? How large of an area is your backyard?
In the back, the entire backyard or the fenced in?
The fenced in
The
backyard?
fenced in part is about 2,000 square feet, it's good size, it's right, basically the length of the house, it just runs off of that, so I try and use that as like a sound barrier when they bark, but if they bark, I just bring them inside. Don't wanna, it's a nice quiet neighborhood, I can, live there forever, friendly with all the neighbors, I don't want any issues with anything.
And have you applied for a dog kennel license?
I think I have to do this first, and then do the kennel, I'm not sure, I'm just trying to do it all on books legally, but I think this is the first thing I have to do.
You do know you need a kennel license
Yes.
for more than 4
Yeah,
dogs.
yes.
Yeah.
And I think I saw there, there's plenty of daycare, right? Not overnight boarding,
Boarding too, yes.
boarding too.
Boarding and, yeah.
Yeah. So Paul, so I'm sure you've seen this, the animal control officer, assuming you get to that point and you get a kennel license, do you see the animal control kennel inspection report?
I have not seen it.
Okay, so there were questions here, for instance, are there kennel runs? Okay, and then are dogs housed in a humane area? Kennel adequately heated and cooled? Kennel is maintained in a sanitary?
Yes, they're in my home, yeah.
Okay, so you have the kennel buildings and they're certified or they're approved?
It's not, it's just in my house, I don't have a kennels, it's just in my home, just like you have your dogs.
Okay. I mean, do you have any idea whether your home would be approved as a kennel?
I think so, yes.
Okay. I'm just, that's,
No.
they'd be looking at adequate lighting, of course, you have electricity.
Yeah.
Adequate ventilation, dogs are able to stand, lay down, turn around freely, dogs have access to clean fresh water, dogs have adequate exercise space. So those are just,
Yeah.
make you aware that those are some of the questions that would come up.
No.
I mean, this is one of my concerns too, right, would be to have the animal control officer say that, yes, this would be an applicable site to house it, right, that would be one of the concerns, so I get what you're saying, you gotta go for the special permit, but I almost want the subject matter expert to say, yes, this is an acceptable
Yeah.
site, that would be.
Right, so I think when he applies for the special kennel, that they would come out and they would do it,
Well,
as a kennel.
isn't this board granting the permit?
So, right, that's,
You're putting the cart before the horse.
right.
Well, the
I mean,
special permit only says it's allowed by special permit for 2 or more dogs, it doesn't get into the kenneling, it's just, say for instance, for anything, building inspector for a building, you're allowing you go to go to the building inspector, doesn't mean you can build the house, you have to take steps first.
That's fair, yeah, that makes sense.
On the kennel license, do you have to have like a separate area for every dog, so like you have
have
dogs,
some-
you're like,
I did get some communication.
you can't have this free for all, right?
No, and I guess, and my question would be, what about waste cleanup? And I think there are some people who, on the audience, or I have comments that came in late this afternoon that they brought to you guys, who are concerned about stormwater, this interim waste going into the receiving water, so pond. Yeah, very pond. So I think, I think that's the consideration. So I think by the special permit is just saying it's allowed for 2 animals or more by a special permit, but again, I think we have to go through the motions.
We're not licensing it for that use, we're granting the special permit to do, it makes sense. Like you said, the building permit scenario makes sense, right? We approve the special permit, the building inspector has that.
Well, the animal control officer.
In this case, the animal control officer has to.
And I really feel it's appropriate that we.
Yeah, I'll go,
Yeah, go
I wanna go to Michael too, just Mike, Online, any questions from you at all?
No, not at the moment.
So, Ryan, if you want to read in.
Okay, so I have two communications, I'm not sure if they, oh, Kara Lancaster, are you present or online? McMaster. Okay, if not, I'll read the communication in line. This was received today at 3:47 PM. Dear Mr. Keating, I am writing regarding the dog boarding business. This might be a question you want to clear up, if this is actually a business or.
I'm not advertising or anything like that, so I'm not gonna put signs up front or anything like that.
Yeah, so there may be some questions about this is an actual business. I am writing regarding the dog boarding business proposed to open on Beach Point Road. I live here on Beach Point Road, which, as you know, is zoned residential. We are a small dead-end road cul-de-sac with a great number of families. We abut South Meadow Pond, which the state of Massachusetts has been involved in cleaning and maintaining in recent months and years. I have concern regarding runoff into the pond from animal excrement. An animal boarding business will negatively impact the water quality of South Meadow Pond, just as the many businesses around Fort Pond have negatively affected that body of water. We kayak and fish in the pond frequently. In addition to the runoff concern, the noise pollution from the quote-unquote dog business is outrageous. I can clearly hear multiple dogs barking from this residence at my home, as well as when I am out boating. This neighbor already seems to have a quote pet sitting / kennel quote operation running on the road, as unfamiliar cars with dogs hanging out the windows are coming up and down the road morning and evening, several days per week, and stopping at this particular residence, number 115, which is the initial house on the cul-de-sac at the end of the road. Our residential neighborhood, which again is located on a dead-end road cul-de-sac, is the home for many young families, including my own. We have just received bus routes for school at MRE and it must be Mary Rawlinson Elementary and Luther Burbank Middle School. We have 7 bus stops, 2 times, twice on Beach Point Road in connecting Cole Farm, a combined distance of 0.3 miles. These cars are dropping off, picking up their dogs at similar times and already causing traffic concerns due to traffic. Most commuters are in a rush. I believe that a business, especially of this nature within a residentially zoned neighborhood, is inappropriate for all these reasons, especially since it goes against town rules and bylaws. It takes away home value and is unfair to the residents. We choose to live on a road that is zoned in a particular way for a particular reason. I'm sure residents of Lancaster living in similar residentially zoned neighborhoods located on a dead end or a cul-de-sac, for instance, Oakman, Devonshire, Hemlock, Farmland, Whitetail, Garrison Grove, Squire Shayla, off of Settlers Path, Bryan Road, etc., would not appreciate a dog kennel opening up in their neighborhood. I am hoping the town can understand my concerns regarding this variance and can take them into consideration when considering this request. Kind regards, Kara McMaster. Kara McMaster does not provide an address. Second comment received this afternoon. Response to a special permit pursuant. This is from Michael Fasulo. Is Michael Fasulo present?
Yes.
Okay. 87 Beach Point Road, Lancaster, Mass. Do you wish to just want me to read this, or would you?
I could read it if you want.
Sure. Okay. You want to come up and state your name?
State name and address.
Kara McMaster is my daughter. She lives with me at 87 Beach Point Road. We're 2 doors down from Paul's house. at 115 East Point Road. I'm here to express my concerns respectfully regarding the recent special permit request to operate a commercial dog kennel in our neighborhood, East Point Road, Cold Farm Road, which is not zoned for business activities. While I understand the passion and dedication that goes into caring for animals, I believe that establishing commercial kennel in a residential area would lead to several issues that would negatively impact our community. These concerns include, number one, noise pollution. The constant barking and noise that a large number of dogs could disrupt the peace and quiet that we currently enjoy in our neighborhood. The presence of many dogs would disturb local wildlife, especially when the pond is a habitat for birds and other animals. Two, traffic and safety. Increased traffic from clients and deliveries would pose safety risks, especially for children and pedestrians. During the drop-off and pickup time frame, dog owners are usually in a hurry to drop off their animals and get to work or school on time. And they're also in a hurry to pick up their animals and get home. Also, these time frames coincide with school bus pickup and drop off. I've had to signal to these motorists several times to operate their vehicles at a slower speed, especially after collecting their animals. Because of light traffic, I enjoy walking, biking on Beach Point Road and Cold Farm Road with my family, who include small children. There are several young families in the neighborhood with young children that walk and ride the roads, and I'm sure they are concerned about traffic as it now exists and how it would increase should this variance be approved. Sanitation. It has been established that there is some kind of existing dog watching business on the property already. The following questions inquire of the business as it exists now and in the future if this variance appeal is approved. What about the excrement the animals produce? What about the excrement a boarding kennel will generate? Where does the excrement go presently? Where will the excrement go if a boarding kennel is approved? How is the excrement processed, if it's processed at all? Will the runoff leach into South Meadow Pond and adjacent Mossy and Coach Lace ponds, which are connected? Will there be an odor, which there undoubtedly will? Odors that can be somewhat controlled but not eliminated. The chemicals used to control the urine and feces that soak into the ground, such as disinfectants and enzymatic cleaners, would harm the animals as well as the environment. The existing potential impact of a dog kennel business in our neighborhood would be negative, especially given the state's investment in the maintaining and maintenance of the ponds. Property values. The presence of commercial kennel could and will lower property values in our area, affecting all homeowners in the neighborhood. Zoning regulations. Our neighborhood is zoned for residential use, and allowing a commercial business to operate here would set a precedent and could lead to further violations that would surely degrade the neighborhood. I can safely assume any other street or neighborhood in Lancaster that is residentially zoned would object to such a variance. We establish bylaws in town government to protect residents of our communities from any infringement that would impact the peace and character of our area and protect the quality of life that we now enjoy. I oppose this position respectfully.
Thank you. Do you have any other comments from public here on this hearing specifically? I'll start off within the room. Yes, please just go up and state your name and address, please.
I need lots. I'm kidding. My name is Mary Ann Stewart.
Mary Ann,
M-A-R-Y-A-N-N-E. Stewart is S-T-E-W-A-R-T.
and your address?
123 Beach Point Road, Lancaster, 01523. I am an immediate abutter to Paul. He's within 100 feet of our house. He is unbelievable with dogs in terms of how he takes care of them, how clean the property is. I have all kinds of issues. I'm very much in favor of him being granted this permit. Barking is a total non-issue. He has had dogs there, like he said earlier, if they bark, they go in the house. He has a plastic barrier against the fence. So if anyone's in a kayak, the dogs can't see the person. They don't bark when the people are out there in the boats. So that's a non-issue. We are retired. We have good hearing. We are home all day. That has not bothered us whatsoever. The traffic, he has that really very, very carefully planned. I feel the traffic is not an issue at all, as far as, you're talking 6 dogs. I mean, how does that, I mean, think of that in terms of traffic. To me, that's not an issue. Sanitation, he's out there all of the time, picking up. I swear he follows the dog around. So that this is, and there are a lot of plants beyond where the animals are going to be fenced in. So we have good distance between where an animal might be urinating and the distance that has to travel. Now, I taught biology. I've been very environmentally involved with a lot of issues. I don't think that would be an issue. I really don't. So he amazes me. Having worked with special needs children, he's just so good. I feel like he's a dog whisperer. When I see him with those dogs, it is just, I think, I'm in favor of keeping it. I really don't think the traffic is an issue. So, okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Anyone else here in the audience? We have 2 people in the waiting room. No one else here. Anybody online for public comment? You can raise your hand and then have you mute. Go online, I'll come back to you. Thank you. I must have missed you behind the pole there, sorry. It's your lucky day, nobody online sees me, so if you want to go up and state your name and address.
My name is Diane Garrity, and I live at 133 Beach Point Road. So I'm actually 2 doors
Can you spell
down.
your last name?
Paradis. It's like paradise without the E.
That's Diane,
Yeah.
Diane,
2 N's.
2 N's.
Yes.
And what was the address in time?
133
133, each one?
Beach Point Road.
Thank you.
And we live 2 doors down from the Falls Doggy Daycare. And I often see, not while I'm out in the yard a lot, but I see, a couple of cars in the morning dropping off a pooch. I think they're probably spaced maybe 15 or 30 minutes apart, because there's only one car, 1 dog, and Paul or his son Jack are always right there at the curb to get the dog, take him down the driveway and take him to their daycare. I have not heard any barking to speak of. Once in a while you hear like a woof, but it's not an annoying bark like you might have from certain breeds that like to bark incessantly. So I feel like it's fine. If it was a barking situation, I would not like it, but that has not been a problem at all. As far as cleanliness and everything, we know the family very well and don't see that as any sort of an issue. I do think that Paul, and I think my husband has spoken to him already, that Paul should tell his clients, which I think he's already done, just to be careful because it's a street with lots of little kids, and to go slowly, which I assume that they will and do. Otherwise, we don't have any problems at all. Happy to support this exercise in doing this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Andy Warren, 63 Beach Point Road,
I'm sorry, Candy?
WARILA.
I-L-A. Sorry, no.
63 Beach Point. So I'm 3 houses away from Paul. I have not found it to be any issue whatsoever. I think there's more cars going to the daycare that's across the street than are going down to the doggy daycare. I'm fine with them having the daycare there and the dog care there. I have not heard any barking, which Diana said occasionally you hear like 1 or 2 wolves. I hear more wolves further up the street than coming from down there. He's great with the dogs. I don't see it being an issue.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So this is one of the questions I'm thinking about. Special permit for kennel. There's also gonna be special permit for running an in-house business. Right, I'm missing my notebook.
No, it's okay.
No.
Right. So there's two items here, right? Because you run into this another circumstance where somebody has to run, has an in-home business.
Yeah, just to have a kennel for dogs, whether they're yours or not. A kennel for 2 or more dogs, with multiple dogs, is a permit one way or the other.
So it's a special permit to
Special
board,
permit,
train,
good.
or veterinary care of more than 2 animals within the structure.
Okay.
That's the special permit we're looking at.
Right. As a business, there's gonna be separate one to run an in-home business, correct?
Well, I don't, yeah, it doesn't. See, I think that's one of the questions, is this is a business or is it, you know,
Well, I mean,
you get it defined as a business is,
if you do it for a business, you can operate under 300 square feet in your house.
Right.
It's an enclosed office as a business. Now you're putting part of your business is the animals outside. So is that included? That's right. And 10 dogs, I have a hard time.
with a home occupation, you
You can do it as a home
need a business
occupation.
certificate.
From the
and-
town clerk, but it's not a special permit from us for
Right.
a home occupation.
Right.
Unless it exceeds.
So I guess what I'm trying to decide is, you know, I think the business part doesn't come into question because we're talking a special permit is required for boarding, training, and veterinary
That's-
care. It doesn't say necessarily a business, you trade, you know, you could be just a farmer, or you could just be a dog lover, or you know, more than 2 animals. Not necessarily.
Is there like a cap? Is there like a cap on the number of animals you need to?
Well, a kennel is 4 or more.
4 or more,
But can we cap it, you know what I mean?
That could be a condition.
that could
That
be,
could be, I mean, is there like a cap that would be a maximum under 10, and it's up to 10? Would you be happy with 6 dogs? Or-
6 would be fine. That's what I'm saying, anywhere from 6 to 10, 6 would be, that'd be okay.
I mean, I know you gotta make a living, you know.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
If you're gonna do it and you wanna make a living.
Is this gonna be something that's permanent, or because you said you were there just because your parents were elderly, if something,
And once circumstances change, then I would probably go back to,
go back to where you were,
this is just, I'm just doing this just so I can be at the house.
be at the house and help your parents?
Yeah. That's the ultimate goal of that.
And if-
And as far as extra noise, that seems to be a big concern. I have 2 dogs already of my own. I have buckets and trash bags. As soon as they move, I just take it right up. It's all fenced in. It's keystone, so it doesn't even go into the ground. It's very well. And I can invite anybody to come over and take a look.
I mean, if it's passed, somebody's gonna have to go inspect it as.
The kennel would have to
I'm comfortable with it.
Yeah.
That's what I mean,
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with that, somebody's gonna go and,
They're gonna
oversee
inspect.
this and make sure it's done properly, so that's.
The,
And
how much distance, sorry, I didn't see it from the pictures, from the back of your fenced-in area to the pond?
it's well over 50 at least, if not 100. I've never measured it. Yeah.
That,
Is it all wooded and vegetated?
The backyard?
Yeah, well, I mean, the access to the pond, is it open to the pond?
It's pretty open, yeah, the back, it's got, like tall grass and trees on the edge of the pond, but everything else is grass. And the pond, you know, we have like one level, the pond's, you know, say here, and then there's a level that comes here and then goes up a hill. And then the
So you have a berm of
Yeah.
some type before.
Yeah.
The neighbors are
Yeah.
right
Yes.
there.
There, so-
Yeah.
So does the fence run before like the pool in the house?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, exactly, yeah. Yeah, right off the house, you just walk right outside the base, fence, walk out basement, and you're in the fenced in area. And it runs the length of the house, and goes out about maybe 25 feet off the house. And I think it's 80 feet long.
Do you have off-street parking?
They can, I have the top of the driveway is a nice spot, they can pull right in there.
I know you do it now, do you like stagger your customers, do they?
Yes, yeah.
I mean, you can't tell 6 people all show up at the same
No.
time, you know?
No, that'd be a nightmare for me. And as far as barking, I don't wanna listen to barking either, it's not my
My
favorite
dog
sound.
barks, my dog barks every day.
Oh, my God, my God.
So yeah, and like I said, I want to be respectful of everybody, it's, when dogs bark, when they're outside and they bark, I just recommend we just come inside, there's plenty of room inside, they just need to go outside, go to the bathroom, that's it. But if they play outside quietly, then great.
Maybe coming in the winter time too, what do you do with them in the winter time?
Same thing.
Same thing, you just run them inside and then
Yeah.
you have a walkout basement for.
Yes, yeah, so, and it's all, it's got a deck over it, so it's covered so the snow, doesn't hit for about 10 feet out, so it's a perfect setup for it.
Do you have a certified dog training that you and it's just something that you've been doing?
This is something, my friend, basically I was at school, COVID came, and I was out of work for 6 months, my friend owned a dog daycare, and I was like, hey, I'll try that out, and I just fell in love with it, and the girl that was doing the boarding there happened to leave, so I just started doing it, I was like, I'm gonna take a dog or two. And my parents, you know, if I can do this, this would be perfect.
You have to do medical care or anything like that, just train the dog if they have.
No. My son is thinking of possibly getting into dog training, but not yet, we just, it's just for people, you know, friends, neighbors that, you know, going on vacation or, you know, just have to, no one's home to watch their dog.
When I look at it,
Drop them off.
you have 6 dogs, it's like you have somebody that works with you, are you just one person with 6?
Me and my son do it, yeah, just in case, that's the,
Yeah, just
that's the goal, yeah.
10
If someone's
dogs.
sick or hurt. or-
10 dogs and 1 person is a lot.
Yeah,
You can't-
yeah,
You can't
exactly,
get 1 dog with them. Like.
yeah.
And you do all breeds, whatever.
What's that?
You do all breeds, whatever you would do.
There's certain breeds that I don't take, and I always meet the dog first, to make
Oh, yeah.
sure that they're appropriate, and I don't need any issues, like I said, my parents are at the house, they're in their 80s, I don't need big, crazy dogs. Yeah.
I don't think this applies. But sorry, this is the table use, that's the table use, this is an accessory use.
Well, it's under rural
As a
use.
home occupation.
Oh.
Right,
I got a question on the rural use once we have a second.
so it should be 20-8. Maybe I'm gonna do it. So here's CC.
How many square feet of the basement would you say you're occupying?
Pretty much there's one, I use 3 rooms down the basement, so the whole basement's about 2,000 square feet, so probably 1,500 at least, it's a good space.
And what do you have above the basement? How many floors? 2 floors?
Just one, it's a ranch,
Okay,
just a ranch with a walkout basement.
so there's a dog occupying the top floor?
No, just all the dogs are down the stairs, yeah.
Okay, and it's occupying, you say, what percentage wise of the basement?
Most of it,
Most of it.
there's my son's.
So you would say roughly you're using half the floors for your home?
Yeah,
So
Well,
it's over 300 square feet.
So he's gonna need a special
It's gonna
permit.
need special permit for
Home.
home occupation.
Is that- Right?
Still,
No,
that's
all.
that's-
That's good, yeah.
Yeah. Which again, maybe one of those things you have to go through, like,
Does that really count though? I mean, the dogs are outside.
But he's using 1,500 square feet of basement for
Oh.
the business, so because he's using over 300 square feet,
Or-
then he's gonna need a special permit for a home occupation. So he's gonna need 2 special permits.
Would you be able to use less from the basement? Could you?
I go with that.
I mean, otherwise, just.
That's 10 by 30. right?
Yeah, but 10 by 30.
10 by 30
is gonna be
$10.
maybe I would expect.
Yeah, you know,
And
that's not.
and it honestly goes against everything we've heard to this point right now, so it's kind of not gonna start being willfully ignorant after having the discussion, so we're already kind of in the gray area that the business is probably running out of home already.
So I mean, this is one special permit, but then he could apply for the second one as a home occupation while he's applying for the kennel license.
And, okay, so you both, I mean, you can put. I agree, I would, but I would also add that we allow this special permit, the board, two or more animal condition use as well. You know, that he would want, would we condition it so that, yes, he'd have to get the home occupation, and he would have to get the kennel license.
And I'd like to condition the amount of,
The amount of dogs.
condition amount of.
Yes, and the 6 cabinet sets.
And how many of these dogs do you think you would be taking like overnight? You said you would be doing boarding as well. Would that just be like,
I'm kind of just gonna take whatever, daycare board, whatever I can get, let's say, maybe 3 or so. 4, yeah.
So-
It's kind of unpredictable, it just
Yeah.
depends on people's schedule, what they need, but
The number of dogs, is that including the 2 that you do?
no.
so if you got the permit for 6, you'd actually have 8.
Yeah, I didn't, yeah.
Then now, is the kennel the basement, or is it, you have another, what are you defining as the kennel?
Just the area I'm using, just the downstairs. If it's easier to just do a day, I mean, I can do daycare. If the kennel, I don't know if the kennel is an issue, or if it's easier just.
Wait, you need to get a kennel license, I mean, I'm.
Regardless,
Yeah, I don't know what they, you know, if you get to that point, you know, talking to the animal control officer who would define a kennel, you know, what does it require, what does it need? You know, and I don't know if a basement counts or just an open space if that counts, I don't know, I would imagine it's some type of structure, right?
Could we continue this hearing while he applies for the kennel license? And then applies for the home occupation and then come back? And then once we see what the kennel license entails,
But was it established that he would have to have the special permit before he applied for this, for the kennel license? Did some of you know?
Yes.
You make it contingent on getting.
I think, yeah.
You can condition it there, right?
condition, okay.
It says boarding turning the vendor care of animals, a special permit. So you can do that without having a home occupation, you know what I mean?
I think you have to start somewhere. I mean, again,
Yeah.
granting a special permit doesn't.
I'm just thinking of offices, a desk and a chair and a square room, whatever. I don't consider the dogs running around as.
I think if it was just outside, it might fall under just the kennel, but with the inside aspect too, that's what I'm letting the business will do. Better safe than.
Cause you can board, train and care for 2 or more animals. You know, for your home occupation license, you can just do that.
Within the structure, so I see what you're saying, so you're saying they can do that within the
And
structure,
then you can
so
say,
then you
this
don't
room
need a-
upstairs in my house is
Yeah.
a 10 by 10 room, that's my home occupation office, that's where I run my business. I'm just looking at that.
Sure.
I'm trying to look at both, I can see the other point of view. It's safer to go and say, you need a special permit for home occupation and or the boarding of animals, so it's 2 special permits.
You were just saying, just like beat it off, that's in the chair, but if part of it again is having the dogs in the house, that's,
Yeah, but
this
this
is
is,
part of the occupation.
but
part of the
it's part of the boarding and training within a structure.
Yes, but you could,
You're boarding them?
I get it, but you could have a residential lot with a, it's not your home, that's boarding and caring for animals, have a structure there. Like, this is legitimately in the home. You could special permit in a residential neighborhood having boarding kennel that isn't a home occupation, right? You shut down the home, it's not actually home anymore, it's a boarding kennel, et cetera. We could approve it for that. But this is,
The cleanest way to do it is 2 special permits, and
that's
that's the cleanest way to do it, then
There's no.
there's a,
there's no question that, correct?
right.
I'm just looking at, he's not here for the special permit for the home occupation.
No, I agree, but I think it covers
Yeah.
him and, yeah. Not to add, I'm not trying to add another layer of tape to it, but
It's a lot, I mean, it is a lot of layers.
It is.
That, and then going for, you know, I mean, but it's the cleanest way to do everything.
it is, yeah.
The only reason I said 6 dogs, I can get 2 dogs, that was gonna be 8 dogs, and I could do 10 dogs, you know what I mean? If you do 6 dogs, including the 2 dogs, that's 8 dogs, that's.
Yeah.
And your own dogs will probably be upstairs, they're not gonna be down.
But there's that was a question, it's not, the kennel piece is just the number of dogs, right? So to run the business, you need 6 dogs. It's 2, or then includes 2. Motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Second. Close. Second, Vince Hubbard. Roll call. Frank Sullivan, Gene Rich,
Yes.
Dennis Hubbard.
Yes.
Michael Bray,
Yes.
Rob Alex, alright, so, public hearing's closed. Discussion among the board.
My only thing, my problem is just the amount of dogs, I just like to keep it at 6 dogs.
Yeah, that's my concern is the number of dogs. Again, I didn't think about there is a home daycare that's operating in that neighborhood too. It is a residential neighborhood now. It sounds like it is running already.
It's a lot of special permit in residential neighborhoods.
Right,
We've already set a precedent for a lot of home businesses.
we're allowing your business right there as well.
To me, it definitely links to the condition on the license.
Yeah, 100%. The condition on the home occupation special.
Yep. And number of dogs, whatever.
6 is what I don't know, would you?
Is your 6 including his 2?
No, it's 6 he can bring in, then his 2, so that would be 8 dogs.
Okay, so we limit it to 6 dogs that
6
are
clients or.
6 clients.
You can say 6
Well,
commercial.
Kennel license for no more than 6 outside.
Right. Owner occupied dogs.
Right, okay, yeah, that's good.
What about a condition on waste?
On what?
Or do you think that comes under the kennel law?
Well, that's gonna come under the
If
Board of
there's-
Health.
If there's a lot of stuff there on the Board of Health and.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody's in order,
And that'll be covered by conditioning of the kennel license, but. If that's a factor.
Can it be conditioned to, I guess, come back for a special permit after a number of years? This is basically, I guess, being in the middle of a residential area, right, in case we either A, start to have issues, or B, sort of to ensure, like, at some point, this doesn't become permanent, as some people seem to be okay with the fact that it was somewhat temporary, though it's an unknown period of time. But is it something we can kind of say, like 3 or 4 years, come back and,
How about
sort of reevaluate?
Permits of time limited to 2 years.
But
How
didn't
about,
the law just change to 3 years? New zoning, I think it just changed like in the last couple of weeks, that a special permit is now good for 3 years instead of 2.
that part,
That's that part of that
I think a lot
whole
of that
zoning,
still-
yeah.
how about
Okay, so it does that anyway?
So after
Yes.
3 years, they're supposed to come to us prior to the 3 years to ask for the special permit to continue.
30-day notice?
Yeah, 30-day notice.
They've already got, do we have to do,
So Mike, I'm sorry.
we have to do a condition, like, you can't roll it over, you know what I mean? Like, if the house gets sold, you can't apply the
Well,
special
it's a special
permit.
permit, so it goes with the owner.
It goes with the owner.
With the owner, it's not a variance.
Okay.
And then the other thing, thinking from an enforcement standpoint too, is making it, contingent on maintaining the kennel license. Right.
Meaning,
What about also contingent on owner aspect? Or is that automatic?
That's automatic.
That's automatic.
So even if they own, well, we're saying it doesn't transfer, what if they,
There's no transfer.
right, can't transfer, it's on the owners, but what if they didn't sell the property? But chose to go live someplace else, like, do we wanna make sure that it's,
So say they move and they're renting it out.
they will rent, or they move and just use it?
As a doggy
you
day.
don't own the house, correct, Paul? Your parents own the house?
But
Oh, you own it,
Yeah.
okay. All right, sorry.
So I get it doesn't carry over to the new owners if they were to sell, but do we wanna condition it that owners on site?
That Paul
Yeah,
owns.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess we could.
So owners must be on site.
I think that's just gonna, you can't lease the property to somebody who wants to maintain it.
Obviously, they want vacation and that kind of stuff, but
Yeah,
But you couldn't essentially
sublease the house or leave it as a vacant house with just the daycare.
Right.
Oh, so, yeah, so he went on vacation, on the daycare, shut down in 2 weeks. So the conditions so far, I have, apply for home occupation. Yep. Home on special permit, that's, field, Board of Appeals. Obtain and maintain a kennel license.
For no more than 6 dogs.
For not more,
Non-owner
Owner
occupied. Non-owner owned, not occupied.
Non-owner, oh yeah, non-owner owned.
Non-owner owned.
special permit needs to be renewed every 2 or 3 years, I'll look into that, according to our bylaws as they stand, it's 2 years, but if the law
Yeah,
has
I
changed.
believe the law
State
changed,
law.
sorry. Yeah.
Okay, but we got questions about that, well, we'll go about that. Owners must be on, must be present on
Must live,
operating.
yeah.
And apply for a home, okay, get the home. Let's see, special permit to the board. Board of Appeals.
I would add something about, just that the customers be staggered in their arrival and departure times, or arrival and pickup times.
That's that.
So that looks like it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 conditions. And Special permit, occupancy, kennel license, new special permit, owners must be present, and customers must stagger arrival.
Sorry.
Enforcement. I don't know.
It's the dog, the bark, and somebody's gonna
Yeah,
call
I
the dog
mean,
officer
they're
to come down
gonna
there, so I'm
call,
sure it's
yeah.
not.
Well, I mean, just in terms of picking up and staggering. Right. But you condition it, I just.
We're not an enforcement agency,
No.
Yeah,
right, we never are. So I think we have to condition it for the owner to then operate in good faith.
Yeah.
And then again,
To keep neighborhood happy.
keep the neighborhood happy and then allow, if it's not operating the way it's supposed to, people have something specific that they could point to, it's not operating.
Well, yeah.
Frank, is that your motion?
yes.
So motion by Frank Sullivan. Alright, so motion to approve the special permit, along with this noted contingencies. It's Frank Sullivan. Second, Dennis Hubbard. Okay. Any discussion around the motion? Not hearing any? Frank Sullivan?
Yes.
Going back to earlier
Sorry.
meeting. Gene Rich,
Yes.
Dennis Hubbard,
Yes.
Michael Bray,
Yes.
Robert Ellis, yes. Okay, so it's 5-0, so Paul, if we get, Brian will write up the, special permit. We fired 5, we'll sign it, file with the town clerk, 20-day appeal period, before we can do it. Obviously, there's contingencies on getting the permit in particular, and then we have to do another special permit for home occupancy, so we'll see you again in a couple months.
So, if you wanna call me, we can talk about the home occupancy special permits, that's gonna move on. And then, you have Phyllis Powers, she is the animal control officer for this area. I'll get you her contact information.
You call the police, dispatch.
I'll call,
That's how you, that's the only way, they won't give you the phone number.
right, this one, okay, all right, so. Okay, any questions, just give me a call. We spoke on the phone, but I will give it to you. You know, okay. I'll do it out the way, or it's on the calendar.
Leave the. Where is that? Yes, I guess we'll go to the.
All right, so next item on the agenda is the public hearing for 7175 Main Street. Application for a special permit. The Lancaster Zoning Board of Appeals will hold a public hearing via Zoom and in the Nashway Meeting Room, Lancaster Town Hall, second floor, Prescott Building, 701 Main Street, Lancaster, Mass. On Thursday, August 22nd, 2024 at 7 p.m. to hear and act upon the following matter. Petition by Grant Isaac, petitioners of 7175 Main Street, Lancaster, Mass. 01523 for the following: request for special permit pursuant to Town of Lancaster zoning bylaw 220, section 7C, unlisted uses to operate a mechanical lift on the exterior of his repair garage. This use is unlisted in the Town of Lancaster zoning bylaws. The proposed site is located at 7175 Main Street, Lancaster, Mass. The 1523 is zoned in a district identified in the Town of Lancaster zoning bylaw as a neighborhood business and is identified by the town assessor as 38 parcel 41, and a copy of the petition and a copy of documents is on file at the Prescott Building Community and Planning Development Office. Robert Alex, Chair. That's the applicant.
Good evening, William O'Neill, I represent Grant Isaacs, who's the owner of Certified Auto and Truck Repair. And we have engineer John Cransworth is here as well. We're going to put we submitted a really reduced plan, but we have a large one where it might be easier. Look at the small one, but we do have a large one here as well.
People who can't see.
Excellent. I like that.
So we have to figure out.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
These old guys, it's really
Wait,
helpful.
yeah.
I can take my glasses off for this.
The blue square is the concrete pad. So the,
Bill, can I ask
You
a,
can lean against that chair.
can I ask a clarifying question? So who is the applicant, certified auto or is it Grant himself?
I believe it's certified.
Certified auto, and certified auto is at 75 South Main Street?
Yes, well, there's a realty trust that Grant Isaacs is the trustee of, that owns the property. The certified auto is an LLC that's owned by Grant Isaacs.
And so it's the certified, it's the LLC that is the applicant. Anyway.
So as, many of you know, this property has been, in Lancaster for a long time. For those of us that have been around, a number of years, there used to be an old building there that, was torn down, and, Bob Sheldon, ran an auto body repair shop there. He had a partner at one point, but, he was basically the person, and, they ran it there for a long time, and then when, the Ford dealership over on High Street went out of business, he bought the building over there because his business was growing and ran what's now CarStar for that facility. So this has been an auto repair shop for a long time, and going back to 1983, this property came before the board for the variance. And as you know, from looking at the plan and just being in the area that it's tight quarters out there. There's a building where there's an engineering firm there that used to be an oil company at one point. And as you can see by the plan, there's kind of a unique setup in that the frontage, there's a right of way which is colored green, at least on the big sheet. And that property is actually owned by the neighbor, but the frontage goes with this building. So I'm not sure what the rationale was. Maybe it was just to give the 71 to 75 a greater amount of frontage back in 1983. But so there is this right of way that Mr. Isaacs and his company have a right to use. It's not their property, but they have a right to use at the time. So there's no big secret. He installed a couple of flips. And didn't realize that that was we considered a structure and we needed to have a permit. So we are here realizing that and right up front. So, but we're asking for those to be able to be located there. They do lift vehicles and trucks, cars and trucks. There's a screen fence that runs along the property that separates it from riding by on Main Street to where the work area is. There's a gate that can be closed, although it's not routinely closed at the right of way. But it can be fenced off if necessary. And they do lift vehicles, but let's face it, if he is going to be in business, the key is to get the vehicle up, get it fixed, get it down, and get it out of there. Otherwise, he's not making efficient use of his time towards employees. So it creates about 16 feet from the lot line, although I would call your attention that again, there's 15 additional feet that's the right of way that he does have the right to use. So that is, and of course, we have a second variance request that's coming up next. I guess if this were successful, then we'd go to that. But that is where we are. If the board saw fit, I guess it would put a higher fence in the front, because I do have at least a picture or two that shows from the street. Sure, it would do. But it does extend probably 5 feet above the fence. Does extend about 5 feet above the fencing. But again, that is not opposed to extending the fence height if the board thought it was necessary. sorry?
They look better without extending the fence height as far as Main Street goes.
Trying to find that picture.
The ultimate intent is to have these lifts go into the proposed building that we approved.
Well, I'm not sure, that that's the case. They could be relocated in there. But I don't think that is the basic intent. If this is effective, I mean, it's a great, area that you can do welding outside and not be, inside, just for extra better ventilation. But, I mean, Mr. Isaac could explain that better than I will.
Welding gases, but all times.
Just for the record, Grant, if you can state your name and
Grant
address.
Isaacs, 581, I'm sorry, 192 Bolton Station Road, like.
Bolton Station Road?
Yeah.
191 Bolton Station?
192.
192 Bolton Station.
So both the dust from grinding to get ready for welding and the welding process. There's a lot of metal dust in the air, a lot of fragments to breathe. Metal gases, if you breathe metal gas, when you're welding, it causes Alzheimer's. So I try and do my welding outside. That's part of the reason why I put storage box up there, so that nobody can see the flash of the weld.
Is all you're gonna use these lifts for is welding? You're not gonna be doing oil changes, you're not?
We do dry repairs there, we do brake work, that's dusty too, and that's unhealthy for these places, so we do dry work out there, tires, brakes, welding, exhaust work. We don't do fluid type work out there.
When you do brakes, that doesn't involve brake fluids.
Now, it's a bucket you bleed it into, you put the hose on the bleeder. We bleed it, goes right into like a 2-liter bottle of, then you recycle the oil.
Never had spills with that.
No, virtually no. If there is speedy dry readily available, but it's virtually never any spill. We do very little fluid work out there.
This dust and metal gases and all that you talk about with welding, is there any harm of that being outside? Does it just evaporate into the air? Does it just?
Well, it essentially, it was inside the building, we just followed the floor as dust.
Yeah.
So it's actually gonna fall to the ground as dust, it's heavier than the air. Except the argon gas and welding, that's, I believe, is lighter than the argon gas. This goes up to the atmosphere.
So there's no harm for being outside to any water?
No, same as doing it inside, yes. Except, we don't have to breathe the dust, my employees don't have to all breathe the dust.
I would say the location, well, the building next door, has one window that is in the very corner. And, but the gate comes over, or the fencing comes over and will be behind that window. So the window is on the street side versus the backyard side. And I think you would have to virtually be in the very corner of the building looking backward to see it. So if somebody's sitting at a desk doing any type of work, it's.
That end of the building they don't actually use, that's a conference room that they have to use. Storage.
But that gate's shut, it's shielded with the screening at that point anyways.
That gate, she doesn't want it shut, that's when the neighbor doesn't want the gate shut.
But for argument's sake,
It's possible to shut, yes.
if she had an issue with that, the
Right,
gate would
you
get
could
shut
shut the
and
gate.
it would scream.
It would screen her, yes.
Yeah.
Right, if I can.
Go ahead, go ahead.
So, when you're grinding, you're welding,
I just said this.
the metal fragment from the grinding, those are heavy, so they fall right to the pad?
All right, that's bad.
Okay, so I mean,
with a magnet on wheels, and then
so you're able to clean that up 100%.
yeah, we have a rolling magnet on wheels.
Oh, rolling
It's a
magnet.
It's a fire magnet, it rolls around the parking lot, picks up anything, anything steel,
Okay, and,
which is anything as far as the framework goes.
and anything from a breezy to a kind of steady wind, do you work outdoors at that point? Is that little
Yeah,
metal
we-
fragments
I
travel?
can't work outside in the strong wind, it's when you welding, because it blows the gas, the shielding gas away.
Okay.
The shielding gas comes out of the tank, shields the weld. And if it's too windy, the shield blows away before the weld, and you have four welds, so you can't weld them.
Okay. And of course, you're not out there in the rain. So, right, so there's no danger or risk of water sheeting into the storm system. It's sheeting the metal fragments into the storm system. Do you have catch basins out there?
They're actually not even, they're way across, maybe, very tip of the property.
Okay.
They're not on my property, they're way down, so everything, I can guess it before it's the catch basin.
Okay.
Over here. Everything, the whole parking lot pitches in that direction, yeah. That's the lowest spot.
Went back along.
He's probably on the highest spot.
Back along. Probably.
Look at two from
The bank owns that property.
from the aesthetic perspective too, right? It's no different than across the street. The drilling equipment, standing back there. Looking to see from like a visual aspect too, right, for the name, for the downtown areas. I'm looking at those, I'm assuming they're what, rock crushing or blasting. Those are sitting in the back, just as high, just as visible.
We asked about the well or the basin. I believe that's at the back, the very corner, let's see, it would be the easterlymost side, right at where property owned by Craig Reynolds bought this and got it back into the property, so it's quite a ways from the location.
You're not storing anything on the lifts overnight or anything like that?
No, occasionally if something does have to be left in the lift overnight, we lower it down to the ground because we don't want calico birds. Maybe when you see people steal calico birds.
Yeah.
So it's to be lowered down to the ground. It's part of the shutdown for the shop. It's like, shut the air compressor off, shut the breakers off, the lifts.
Yeah.
It's part of the shutdown procedure.
Okay.
And what do you do in the winter? Is there any cover or anything? I'm sorry?
We use it in the winter.
You're not anticipating putting a cover or anything?
No, I don't anticipate no cover.
You just kind of work in the weather?
They can operate outside, they're paid to be out in the weather.
And tell me again, why is the gate left open?
Because it closes over on the neighbor's property. It closes over her,
Toward Capco?
yes, and
Okay.
she would rather have it open.
So the green area is actually owned by the owners of Capco.
The gate functions, I made the gate function, but she said she'd rather have it open.
Is it open 24 hours a day? Or
That
is it-
gate's open 24 hours. That's not up to me though, it's up to her, because
Yeah, I know.
You just have the right of way.
You have the right of way. And your fence, does your fence run along the right of way or does it?
Perpendicular to the right of way.
perpendicular to the right of way runs front to back.
Yeah.
Right away.
Right.
There's a second fence.
But you have a fence that goes down along the right of way also? No.
That's actually on their property.
Or-
Oh, yeah, you can use barely, so right here. So here's the right away.
So that right of way, they have, anyone can come in and have free access to your lifts.
They could,
Yeah, okay.
So,
The chain link behind the
Yeah.
cap comes.
But given the shutdown safety procedure,
I had outside on all this, where's the other part? I never had a problem with it. I had it in Lancaster when I was on, at 842. In Clinton, outside there. I was in Hudson, before I moved to Lancaster. I didn't really see it. I never heard of it being a problem before. I was shocked to find out that you can construe those as being a structure. To me, it's a tool. I never considered it to be a structure.
I believe the chain link fence that runs alongside the Camco building is a continuous fence. That doesn't
Yeah.
open.
Right, that doesn't open, but the right of way open, there's still, yeah, okay. So that makes no
Yeah,
sense
we have
why
lots
they
of- yeah, we have
want,
lots of campus.
since that fence is closed along Capco.
But somebody could go right in the front from Main Street with the open gate. That's.
Right, so what's the harm in, like, why do they want that gate open all the time if there's a fence along there?
Because she says in the winter time, she wants to be able to park there while she gets a driveway up. She doesn't quite understand right away, she wants to be able to park there, but I can't. That's okay, well, you know. She's the park there, get a driveway, but that's fine. But
So this is for the special permit to allow the outdoor lifts, but we also need variance because they're within
The
the
variance.
sideline setback.
Because if we want to, just say, someone could argue that this is not an unlisted use, it's an accessory structure, okay? And then the variance would be to require that the accessory structure be in the rear yard as opposed to the side. So that would be a variance.
my argument would be there that Dean Rich himself said that when the last time we were here, we should put up a fence to differentiate our front yard from our backyard. So we put up a fence to differentiate our front yard from our backyard. So my argument would be, we're in our backyard, because we're behind that fence.
Look at a map, it's a side
It's a
yard.
side yard.
Putting the fence changes that.
I also asked Mr. Isaacs about could the pad and the lifts be located on the other side of the building? And quickly pointed out that when the building was constructed, all the offices, the bathrooms and everything are on the left side of the building. So you'd have to rework the entire building. And on the right side of the building, there's a large garage door, which makes everything very accessible to the rest of the shop for tools and workers to go in.
And having in there, you still have the pathway to go around for snow plowing.
Yeah.
It's part of your
Yeah.
original.
Fire truck,
Yeah.
Yeah, the fire
ambulance,
truck,
anything
the
that's
access.
got there, it's very easy.
We can ready to get started on the building now.
Oh, the addition is going forward,
Yeah,
and these would not go into the building, the lifts?
we're not 100% sure they're gonna go in the building now. We still like to have outdoor lifts for welding and brake work.
So, I guess I'm gonna go back to my original question is, does this require a special permit when he already has, he has a building, he has a piece of property that is zoned for automotive repair garage? And do these outdoor lifts, because they're not listed, but neither is tire changing, neither is oil changing, those are all part of automotive repair. So why the special permit for the lifts and why not just a variance for the side yard setback?
Well,
That,
right, and again, the building commissioner and myself, talked pretty extensively. And, it all just came back to, operating outdoor lifts, or operating outdoors, I mean, it's just seemed to be more of an unlisted use.
Well, there's junkyards in town who, when they need to park, they go out and they take the car with the loader. And they take the part off they need while they're working on the loader. The loader's essentially just lift, same thing on them. They're working outside. If a truck breaks down on Route 2, they'll need a special permit to send a mechanic out to change the fuel oil on the truck on the side of the road.
Right, but that's like field work, that's field spot, work, this is permanent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in those situations, you're talking about one-offs, this is gonna be repeated work. To me, it's a difference in they had a spot where they're jacking up a car and doing a little work, we've got a structure that's in place. I think it's better off to do the special permit, because construction had to go into actually setting these things, right? I mean, these are structure.
They're permanently, I mean, I know you can unscrew.
You can unscrew it, you can mount
But
it
it's
someplace else, but it's a mounted, fixed thing, right? So I think.
On a piece of property that is zoned for auto repair. So that's where I have the problem.
My thing was I never had to get a permit for a lift inside. So I didn't understand why I get a permit for a lift outside. You understand where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
It's a structure that's. I get it.
You know what I mean? That's where that never dawned on me when they came by and said that if it was a structure, I was like, it's a lift. No, I never, so, you buy structure material from places like Home Depot, they buy lumber and bricks and mortar and stuff like that. You buy automotive lifts from the guys that sell you tools.
Yeah.
They don't sell brick and mortar and 2x boards.
Yeah.
So to me, it's a tool.
Right, but I think, Gene, when you're arguing that, it's automotive, so when you're operating an automotive garage, you're required to have drains with special filters before things get into, you don't have that equipment on the outside. When you're doing automotive business inside the building, those are the requirements of that occupation. You have to have drains, and traps, and grease traps, and all of these things that are certified, which he doesn't have.
Yeah, but I don't want to pollute my land, so I don't do.
No, I understand, but I guess.
We just don't do fluid repairs out there, we just don't.
Right, but, again, there's always gonna be that time when you're gonna have someone who's, a new guy comes and, starts draining oil, or it's unprotected. It says, these things, you have those safeties inside the building for a reason, right, for these accidents that do happen. I think that's, just for explaining, this is, I think where the building commissioner and I kind of decided that this was, needed to have the special permit. Yes, it is in the normal course of actions, but like you need to have structure, the infrastructure around that use.
And we do have a collection drain in case anything does go wrong. This is about this wide, it goes around, it's compact.
On the perimeter
Around the
of the pad?
perimeter. Doesn't drain anywhere, it goes right there, so if anything was to spill, it goes right there, so.
Okay, and that perimeter drain
That perimeter.
collects.
That perimeter that I made around, that's why it's across town, so it would collect anything there.
But where does it go after it collects into the?
Well, it would collect there, and then we'd be able to.
Shot back
We'd
or
be able
something?
to back it up, or, speedy dry or something like that, Yeah, we haven't had anything in it, so.
Right, so you have a protection built in.
We do.
So this is. Good.
But I think that's why you come to a special permit, is to make
Right.
sure those things are there, right? You're dealing with runoff and that type of stuff. We look for the-
Aaron, did you put the concrete pad in? Or
We
was it-
did.
You did?
No,
I think the spill risk would be less in grants than it would be across the street at Cumberland's.
that's enough.
And,
Oh, you mean with gas pumps?
and, in terms of the welding gases, I think that you'd be in more environmental danger from secondhand cigarette smoke than from the welding operation out in the open.
Every day of my life, so.
Yeah.
And you're
My job
protecting
requires me to weld
protecting
outside every day of my life,
work.
so it's like,
Better ventilation
outside, there's what's going on.
Yeah.
It's,
So I go back to something that Mr. Sullivan was asking about the concrete pad. Mr. Isaac said that he did inquire with the town whether they need a permit to put the pad, and was told no, so I mean, it's kind of a, one.
Well, no, it's just what's on, right, no, you don't need a building permit.
No, I understand, but it just, you kind of got led,
Okay.
he was mistakenly under the belief, okay, I don't need a special permit for.
Oh, I just wondered if the
Structure
concrete pad was
of it.
pre-existing, if the concrete pad was there before, maybe somebody was doing repairs there in the past.
I mean, it feels like, I'm just looking at like the
Yeah.
definition of the structure, right, in the zoning bylaws, and just reading through it, a combination of materials assembled and at a fixed location to give support or shelter, such as building, framework, retaining wall, tent, reviewing stand, platform, which we could debate is the platform, like bin, fence, sign, flagpole, mast for radio antenna, or the like. But so that's why I think it's, I get what you're saying, but I think it's a fixed structure outside the building. If you did it inside the building,
Admittedly, I was surprised on the island that's around my neighborhood, when I went to insure it, they said, "Oh, any structure?" I said, "No." Yeah, they said, "There's a stone wall, a couple of benches, so those are structures." So from an insurance standpoint, all of a sudden there's a structure, and I have an additional.
I mean, I don't have a problem granting a special permit, I'm just not convinced that it's needed for everyone, whatever. You know, 'cause
I feel it's appropriate. Again, I don't know if I'm grading it in this situation, but I think in other situations where I wouldn't, especially if they didn't have a slab and drainage around it, and they were next to the neighbor, like, there could be reasons why you don't want this going anywhere, right? So, having it come in, reviewing, make sure we're comfortable with where it's at, what controls are in place for grading, I think it's fair for this to come to this.
If it's a roof over it, that's a structure, but if you leave it the way it is.
I think because it's assembled at a fixed location, right? I didn't know you could unbolt it and
You
move
can
it.
bolt it and move it to my garage, you can move it to your house.
I know, I know.
The shed too, but we're gonna call it shed structure. Right?
You could, yeah. Or forklift and move it wherever you want with it.
Does it actually matter what the definition is? If the zoning enforcement officer indicates that's what it is,
Yeah,
they're gonna live with that.
yeah, that's fair.
To John's point, it would be great if we said, yeah, it's not a structure, we still have to come down the zoning variance, so it kind of all the same issues are gonna be discussed here.
Do you want to open it up to that? Special.
What's that?
I guess I we answer all of our questions, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it means open to the public as well, yeah. So, thank you. So, Grant, thank you. So I'll open up now to anybody in the room for public comments.
I would like to make a comment as a resident.
Can you state your name and address?
My name is John Farnsworth, I live at 35 Pine Hill Road. And in my travels about the community, I probably go over to Clinton 2 to 4 times a day. And I knew who was fiscal, he was there, he was a year behind me in high school. And just made me feel terrible to drive over to Clinton or come back into town with that empty spot. You know, the first thing you drive into Lancaster and, you know, it looks like, I don't want to use the word depressing, but, you know, to not have an entity there. And, you know, I think Grant has done a great job. You know, they're bustling, busy. And every time I go by, I really get an upbeat feeling and see the activity. And Grant has done everything that he's been asked to do. I think that he's a really great mechanic. And he's coming up to speed about learning about zoning.
And it'll be changing tomorrow, so you'll never know it all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
That's
Can I ask you, can you come up just so everyone can hear you? I should ask the same, John.
My name is Michael McGrath Hewitt, I live at 89 Bigelow Road.
I'm sorry, Michael
McGrath Hewitt, that's
McGrath Hewitt. And Hewitt is Hewitt.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
What's your address, please? What's your address?
89 Bigelow Road. I've been in town almost all my life, and I've known Grant for 7, 8 years. I've worked for him for about 3 or 4. He's taught me everything from working on the lawnmower to working on my furnace at my house. He is a great asset to the community, and he's all about teaching the younger generation how to do the things that really nobody knows how to do. I mean, I even learned how to tune a carburetor from this guy. I'm like 30. I never even saw one before.
So, let me teach you an electric car, even though.
Anyone else here in the room? Okay. No.
Get a couple
Okay.
on.
Couple online. So first one I see is Kendra. Kendra, if you want to unmute, state your name and address.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kendra Dickinson, 402 Oatman Way, speaking as a private resident. As much as I am a huge proponent of fostering the local trades, I drive by this property 6 to 10 times a day, and I have a serious safety concern with the fact that that fence is open by those lifts, because if I'm walking with my child, if I'm walking with my dog, or if I'm just blind and walking, and he's trying to put a car down, I could get squished by them. So I have a safety concern. And with all due respect, Mr. O'Neill, the cars over in the 30-day parking designated area and all of the miscellaneous refuse has been there since this property was purchased. There has been a concern brought to me by several folks who have been concerned about it turning into a, and I hate the word, quote unquote, junkyard. I would love to see a very functional, clean, well-run repair shop happen there. The Volvo, or the, I can't say Volvo specifically, but the shop that was there before was very clean. Maybe it wasn't super busy. However, I have concerns about if we're trying to make a walkable downtown Lancaster, that this is going to be a deterrent, given the amount of stuff that's behind the fence that was put up prior to asking for permission. And I'm just going to leave it at that. Thank you.
As far as the items, I asked Mr. Isaacs about how does he get rid of tires. There's some of them that wants to have a significant quantity, but they're not going to come to about 10, they probably go over 75 or more. It says it does have a metal dumpster that is emptied every other week. So
I'd like to address our concern about the crush by the car. These lifts, the decent rate of these lifts, they probably take a full 3 minutes to go from full up to full down. Anybody get crushed under that would be an idiot. They'll be walking back there anyway, so we're pushing back, that's behind the fence, we haven't had anybody walk, maybe trespassing, right? So I don't know what you're talking about, but anybody walking back there would be trespassing.
Correct.
And the lifts descend, like I said, it might take a full 3 minutes for those lifts to go all the way down. It's not something that happens lightning fast.
Somebody has to actually be controlling it too, correct?
Yes, two hands, one has to hold the safety, and one has to hold the, so you're standing right there, you know?
but could I ask, and I don't know the answer, but he does, then you can only control them from outside.
Right there, you have to stand right there.
Just safeties and stuff for a
Yeah, you have to put it down, you have to have two hands with it. get there.
But there's even locking function, so like if something malfunctioned, it's
They
going to lock
automatically
it.
locks, automatically lock, yeah.
Is there a way to deactivate that? So for instance, at night, you know, like
Yes,
kill
we-
power in that area.
That's part of our shutdown, station. We shut the power off, all of this, inside this, outside this, everything.
What's the distance we're talking about between the lifts and I guess where people are walking, right? Sidewalk or whatever?
60 feet maybe. John, you better, outside of the street.
So the building is set back 40 feet from the street.
And this is further back than that.
This is behind the fence, probably another 10 feet or more.
But you got a storage unit there, right? Or,
Yeah.
I can't envision a walking tour that would be going behind the building.
Yeah.
40 feet setback is set on Mr. Farnsworth's plan on the left side of the building.
The Connex box is gonna be another, what, 8 feet wide, 10 feet wide?
They're like 8 feet wide, I think.
Yeah. So you're 48 feet off the. Yeah.
It's at 48 feet off the sidewalk.
Yep.
Yeah. There's no sidewalk on that side of the street, it's on the other side of the street.
Oh, okay. And Kendra was talking about walking, so
Yeah.
figured.
There's no sidewalk on that side, it's across the street.
I think we're good.
For the record, I re-raised my hand.
Okay. All right, Kendra, and I don't want to get debate back and forth, so let's keep it to the hearing. That's my only ask, keep it cordial.
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that. So, a point of order is I would maybe suggest a measurement from the gate to the first lift. Considering there's a storage container there, I'd love to see the actual measurement. Second, after 17 years in the automotive industry, I've never seen external lifts, and I've been in big dealerships, small repair shops, and other various forms of automotive repair prior to my current career. So I do have a general public safety concern as the fact that it may technically be considered trespassing. There's automotive industries and dealerships or automotive businesses and dealerships in the area that have had truck wheels stolen, other things. So trespass does unfortunately happen. So if an address to the open gate could maybe be talked about more, that would be fabulous.
It's not mine to shut.
Is that measurement on the map?
Well, that's what I was asking. Mr.
40 feet,
Farnsworth.
it's showing 40 feet, container's 8 feet wide, so
50.
it's 48 feet.
Your minimum.
So we
Genuine
have
48.
is.
Yeah, I
at least
think
10
that
feet
we're
back.
probably 16 to 18 feet to the vertical pier that makes up for the width.
Yeah. We have all the cameras all over the property. She gets a hit the second anybody's there.
Yep.
Thank you, Kendra.
Any more comments online? Not seeing you raise. No.
Make a motion to close these.
Anyone in the room or the audience?
Oh, anybody else in the
I'm
audience
sorry.
for public comment?
I think we're all.
Main Street trouble.
Come to the podium, please.
Yeah, sorry.
962 Main Street, Lancaster,
I'm sorry, what was the name?
John King.
John King.
You grandfather yet? No.
I'm sorry, what was the address?
962 Main Street. So just to address Kendra, I worked for a Porsche dealer in the town of Stowe, 370 Hudson Road in the 80s. They had lifts outside.
So,
Down south, lifts are outside everywhere. You can't go anywhere, even down south. I'll see lifts outside. The reason why I'm not up here is because people are sitting, they don't want to work in the cold. We don't mind it, so as long as we don't mind it, I don't see the problem.
I just have one thing, I did ask, how many cameras, and there are 5 cameras that are mounted around the building, which good works. I agree, with things can be an attractive nuisance to a child, somebody going in, it's pretty well secure though. Well, it's pretty well off the road, so, but agree, anything can happen, but it seems that the way the operation of the lifts do work, you need two hands to operate it, and you have to be outside at the lift.
Yeah.
It would seem that you're going to see if something is somehow wandering under.
So the reason for my question, especially where Kendra brought up the storage container, but then there's also the 15 feet right away on the side, right, is really primarily just sort of health related when we're talking welding, right? Because going by an OSHA recommendations, right, you have 35 feet with outdoor ventilation for somebody without a health risk, right, and 35 feet to anything combustible and flammable, right? So I just want to make sure there's decent clearance around whatever we're talking about here, right? That there's not either people constantly walking through there, obviously who aren't working there, I guess, right? Or, flammable substance container storage or anything there, right? Given the space of everything. That's all.
I'm not sure.
I
It was garbled or
I know,
two
there was-
people talking.
Yeah.
Do you want to ask Michael to repeat?
Yeah, if you-
Mike, can you repeat, because we had some background noise from somewhere else, from another microphone.
I'm sorry, it's not me background noise, is it?
No, it was another.
Oh, okay. So the reason I asked the question, especially when Kendra mentioned the storage container, I guess up near the lifts, right, is with concern to welding and not having a localized ventilation device while doing this, a typical OSHA recommendation is 35 feet minimum to anything combustible, flammable, and/or anybody who's going to breathe that in. That's including outdoors, right? Unless you got a couple 100 feet per minute of airflow. So cubic feet of airflow, right? So I'm just trying to ensure here that either there's not constantly people in that area or anything really combustible that's getting sort of jammed in around here. I don't think the neighbor, if you're going to get 1 second of exposure 35 feet away, is problematic. But that's the only thing I guess looking at the picture I'd find concerning, right? They were talking about a storage container right next to it, for example.
And I'd say within our
That stores our oil filters and things like that, nothing combustible.
and I think that's somewhat outside of our purview. Right? Ours is around the structure itself,
Yeah.
right? So again, it might be your concern, and I guess I've learned this from being on here a couple of years now. We're restricted to what we can. I understand your concerns, but we need to focus on the structure itself, right? So not.
Agree, right? But I guess if we're authorizing a structure for use in a way that is unsafe, right?
We're just authorizing structure.
That's all.
So,
I'm with you.
I mean, just a point of procedure, if the special permit were to be approved, you would still need to go to the building commissioner for completed building permit. You still have to get your building permit, so that's, I think, where a lot of these issues, concerns would be addressed.
You're right. Yeah. The enforcement officer makes sure that it's correct. We're just authorizing for the structure.
Take a motion to close here.
Sounds like you just did.
I just did.
All right, I'm
Okay.
seconding. Second.
Okay, that's Howard. Second, Gene Rich. Frank Sullivan.
Yes.
Gene Rich.
Yes.
Dennis Hubbard? Yes. Michael Bray?
Yes.
Rob Alex, yes, and 5 rest of the public hearing is closed. Discussion among the board.
So,
I have a few conditions that we can make sure, I think we're on that, right? So one is that it's depowered at night, it sounds like they're doing, it's depowered at night and deactivated, right? It sounds like they're doing that, so that's fine, but I just wanna make sure that stays.
Yeah.
No cars kept on them, especially lifted.
Well, let's,
Sometimes they may have to, but
no cars elevated overnight.
can we set on a safety, sometimes you just can't put them down sometimes. Not very often, but sometimes you just can't.
We're not.
But they said on safety.
I guess we're not I guess, non-public comment. You're right.
but
Can we put it to 2 feet above ground or something like that? Yeah, I mean, you can't have it 6 feet in the air, but bring it down to.
It's in our best interest to get it low to the ground as we can, so nobody steals the cattle.
I'm not trying to be paying ass, but we're done with public concrete. I'm not, I appreciate it. Yeah.
So can we take 2 feet of? Like,
Yeah,
2 feet above ground.
2 feet above ground, so we'd have to crawl underneath it.
Yeah. Just enough to get if there were tires, there might not be tires on it, so if you get it like tire height.
And then any of the drains in the slab are maintained and working, or I don't know if that's something we would need to do, or if we can get a building inspection, but I just wanna make sure that the catch drains that they have stay in good work, like they're on a cleaning schedule or maintenance or whatnot, right, because that's our safety for us, so. I don't know if that's for us.
I would say no draining liquids on those.
Yeah.
That kind of.
Well, the draft condition I put in, he has to get a building permit.
Yeah, but I think a lot of the drafting is now gonna change because they're not gonna put the lifts into the building in the back. There's not gonna be,
Probably don't know that.
he said he didn't think he was gonna move them. And it makes sense to not put them in a building if the purpose is to have them outside, so you're not breathing all that.
Yeah, I'm okay, I just wanna make
Yeah,
something
I'm
about
okay
keeping
with
them
Yeah.
in good working order, right? The
So-
routine maintenance and upkeep is maintained on them.
Yeah.
If that's something we can condition, I think it's in our purview, I'd like to have a condition on that. Again, there's no indication the property owner isn't, but just make sure that's.
Well, I think we can condition getting the building permit. And I think, that might, involve some of these concerns. That we're bringing up.
So what you're saying is he needs to obtain a building permit for these lots?
Right.
Okay. And you're saying, granted, you don't intend to move these lifts indoors when you put the addition on the
No,
back?
because the whole intention was to do that kind of work outside.
Okay. So that's why I'm saying some of the conditions have changed.
Well, right, I mean, I kind of drafted those with the understanding that they were gonna go inside.
So I think those are some reasonable conditions. So the dry work.
Yep, running liquids, dry work.
And again, we talked about earlier, it's a special permit, so whatever the time frame is, we would figure that out. Either 2 or 3 years. If it's still going well, it'll be easier to remove.
Do you clean the metal debris with the magnets every day?
We do every day, yeah.
Okay, so that could be another condition, is that the
Yeah,
metal.
clean up.
Yep, clean up. Here. So the keeping the clearance of the right of way and all that was on the other
Good.
variance, so we don't have to go through all that again.
Still needs to be
That's already been
Right.
recorded, it's already a part of the condition of approval
of the variance.
of the variance.
So that's
Yeah.
on the lot, which is.
So I think we should condition, further condition that those conditions in the variance are being observed. Yeah. I mean, do you have, what are the vehicle counts in your yard in terms of unregistered vehicles or vehicles that are, do you have any?
I only have a couple of those vehicles.
In the variance, there was that 25, what was it, 25 foot?
Go around that, yeah, once we start the building,
That's gonna
gotta
be.
get open, yeah, it's all part of the.
Well, what's the new building gonna be used for? What's gonna be used for?
Brian, do we,
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
we closed the public.
Yeah, that's, okay, yes,
Right.
no more second, sorry.
So-
Sorry.
I think we got the conditions. I'm
For the special
for
permit.
the special permit, the variance already has on, and we're gonna do another variance
We're gonna do
where we
another.
can make sure the lot stuff stays in.
Well, then, no, the other variance we're gonna do is because the lifts, are too close to the site.
Right, so with that, we can make sure all those site clearances and stuff that we throw on the site are reinforced if we have concerns. So the fact that it's closer. I just reiterated the same things on multiple different ones, and the variance to me is, we've got better control over that, that's longer term, right? For all the site stuff, site clearances and stuff.
Right, that's probably not something to renewal.
That's not subject for renewal, that's on the site, that it's deed, that's locked in there.
It's more.
So, I think keeping what we need for the lift for conditions.
Yep. Right. So Dennis, that's a motion to approve with those conditions, correct?
I'll make a motion to approve with those conditions.
Just to recap, depowered, the conditions are depowered, lifts are depowered at night, no cars elevated past 2 feet.
2 feet.
Slabs kept clean of metal debris and contaminants. And what was?
The drains maintained,
Yeah.
no draining of liquids, only dry work,
Perimeter drains maintained.
and obtain a building permit for the lifts. What I heard.
I know it's not public comment, but there was one other, I thought it was a metal collection there.
I'm
Well, that's
sorry?
keeping the slabs.
That's keeping it clean,
Yeah,
yeah.
on the back around.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion, hearing none, Frank Sullivan,
Yes.
Gene Rich,
Yes.
Dennis Hubbard,
Yes,
Michael Bray,
Yes.
Rob Alex, yes, so. That's to approve. So, typically in 14 days, we'll get it drafted, signed, and then a 20-day appeal period. And then go from there.
I'm ready for the public,
Yeah.
yeah, we have to do the variance.
And then we do that. Okay.
Almost.
So next.
Yes.
Oh, the variance.
Yes, variance. Yes, but one-
I missed page 2.
Okay.
Great, sorry. So Lancaster zoning board of appeals will hold a public hearing via Zoom, sorry. In the Naturally Meeting Room, Town Hall, second floor, Prescott Building, 701 Main Street, Lancaster, Mass. On Thursday, August 22nd, 2024, at 7 p.m. to hear and act upon the following matter. Petition by Grant Isaac, petitioners. 7175 Main Street, Lancaster, Mass. For the following requests for variance. Relief pursuant to the Town of Lancaster bylaws, 220-11C, Section 2, to install an accessory structure in the side yard pursuant to this Town of Lancaster bylaws, 220-11B, to allow said structure within the side setbacks allowed this district. The proposed site is located at 240 Main Street, Lancaster, Mass. In the zoning district identified as Lancaster zoning map as neighborhood business, is identified in the office of the assessor as map 38, parcel 41. Copy of the petition and accompanying documents are on file with the Prescott Community Development Planning Office. Robert Alex, Lancaster. All right. You got anything from the applicant?
Again, for the applicant, and with that is Grant Isaac's, the member and manager certified. Otto being the owner, the applicant, but in this, for variance, I think it would be him as trustee of the 175 Main Street Realty Trust. Well, we certainly have discussed quite a few of the items already. I would say that, I didn't say in the beginning, but along with the concrete pad, the entire property is paved. So that there's no reaching into the ground and directly.
There's no grass for anything to go.
Yeah.
Mr. Isaac had been in Clinton, just over the line, left of Shaw's, and right of the little neighborhood store there, and relocated. He invested in the building. And I've been trying to figure out the building. If my recollection is correct, the building that Mr. Sheldon was in was to the left of the current building. And I think the board of appeals allowed him to build to the right. And that's why the building is so far skewed over to the right-hand side of the property. If you look, there's 89.7 feet to the north or the left of the building, and the building itself is on the extreme 96.7 feet. If I recall, I think the old building was where the parking lot is, and they allowed him to build so he could have continuous operation of his business. The only person, perhaps older than me, that would know that is John Farnsworth. But I'm pretty sure that was the case. But Mr. Isaac, as you can see, he does have a thriving business there. There's a lot of activity. He employs 12 employees. That's probably going to grow with the addition of the 1976 foot addition. So he's a strong employer in the community. The property is a very tight area. If we look at the building to the right, that wouldn't meet zoning bylaw today because it's 15 feet off of the boundary line. And again, this property was built somehow way over to the right-hand side of the property. So, but I would say, although it would be within the boundary line, or it would be within the setback for Mr. Isaac's property, with that easement area, there's an additional 15 feet. So it certainly is well away from the building that is adjacent to his property. Again, I can't figure out why the frontage along the roadway would kind of stop the right of way, but I'm not sure I'm explaining it correctly, but the pavement, the pavement here is his frontage, but as soon as you come back 20 feet, it's the right of way. So I'm not quite sure what the engineer had in mind, but they were advising it that way. Perhaps it was just to give the two lots somewhat of an equal amount of frontage.
I think it was giving him enough square footage to be able to sell the second piece of parcel, second land.
Oh, like 67.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, we are asking for a variance to allow the lifts to be located, that structure that was approved under the special permit within the boundary line, within the setback requirement. But again, pointing out that the easement area does provide that additional space. And the access easement is not for parking, it's not going to obstruct anything going in. Usually, like I said before, you could drive a fire truck, an ambulance, anything right in through that gate and be pretty much unobstructed and go pretty much around the building without issue. So I don't think there's any safety issue that is at risk there. I don't think it's really creating a problem for the neighborhood because again, it's a very tight area. I'm not sure the distances from I'll say the Capcom building to the former Michael's Bridge Diner building, but that also is another very tight area. So some of these areas are just old locations, and so I don't think really see you're varying from the intent of the bylaw, considering the way things are already constructed there.
So the lifts are how close to the property line? 16 feet?
I think the closest one is John, that'd be John.
It's about 16 feet. That would be to the property line, and then you'd have.
The right of way, yeah, yeah.
Is that the slab or the lift itself?
The mast,
Oh, the lift.
yeah.
It would be good to have that on the plans.
And to one of the comments that you had made, the fence that runs perpendicular to Main Street there, really the capital for some of the only people that are precluded from access to the right of way.
Now, there are we had a variance that was issued by this group in January of this year. They said there was an initial variance back in 1983, different board, but before the zoning board did address. In reading that, they really rested on financial hardship that Mr. Sheldon's got to be up there. I know that's not the measuring stick necessarily today, but it's a. They said the location can't be on the other side of the building without reconstructing everything inside the building, because the offices and the storage, or the bathrooms and everything are on the left side of the building. So you makes it, somebody working outside would have to walk all the way around, it's men, and it just completely ineffective. It could be probably more hazardous with people walking around more than necessary if it's located where it is.
So 16, so we're essentially 1 foot closer to a property line than the variance we just gave them recently for the building for 17. And then you have the 15-foot right of way, so.
Right.
Right.
Clearance stands 31.
The other thing I would add is that if under a special permit you have, was it every 3 years?
Yeah.
It's somewhat of a guaranteed built-in issue from the variance standpoint if something is not being done in accordance with the restrictions or the conditions of a special permit. Kind of have a safety net built in right there. And again, it is fenced area and it is screen fencing. So in an ideal situation, but have the gate closed, probably be, but that is not his decision as the land for the right of way is owned by the adjacent property.
Alright, so open it up to anyone in the room for any public comments. Seen anybody go online and raise their hand? Hold on before we go online, John, do you mind going up to the podium? Sure. Thank you. State your name and address.
John Brownsworth, 35 Pine Hill Road, Lancaster. Having something on the side of the building here, the lifts are probably safer than having a pool. And it's a good location. It's really secured. It's secluded from the street. I mean, people that were going along the side of the road would have to really go out of their way to find their way into that area. And I think my only other comment is that I really think that we need to have an approach to these things where we're nurturing our local businesses. And I only base that on my tax bill.
I know, John.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anybody online? Nothing, anybody's hands raised online?
Make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
Discussion here none. Frank Sullivan?
Yes.
Gene Rich? Dennis Hubbard?
Yes.
Michael Bray?
Yes.
Now, Alex, yes, a motion.
Make a motion that we grant the variance to allow the lifts to be located approximately 16 feet from the side yard setback.
Second that.
Alright, so, motion by Gene Rich, second by Frank Sullivan. Any discussion here, none, do a roll call vote, so Frank Sullivan.
Yes.
Gene Rich.
Yes.
Dennis Hubbard.
Yes.
Michael Bray.
Yes.
Rob Alex, yes. Alright, so 5 votes, the same thing as before, 14 days. We'll get that drafted, signed, and then with the town clerk for the 20-day appeal period. Go from there.
Thank you for the consideration.
Thank you. You get that broke. I'm sorry, I didn't think it was gonna take as long as it did, I'll be honest.
They're all gone. Where'd they go?
Did the clock stop on the billable hours, you think?
Thank you very much. I get a lot of use out of this casual.
Yeah.
I've been around a good time, huh, John?
Thank you.
I didn't think it was gonna take 2 hours, so.
Yeah.
Like Rob said, Lancaster Street.
Yep.
Up under the.
We'll get the roads over this.
Try your best to keep everything in building quiet.
All right, so next up is the hearing, continuance of the hearing for 13 Neck Road, and my apologies, I didn't think that was gonna take as long as it did, I really didn't. I thought it was on
We're used to it. so-
You get dogs and you get all this other stuff.
It's all very interesting.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
So, yeah, it's with, for the record, Attorney Christopher Alphen for the applicant. At the last hearing, we obviously had a conversation about revising the project to make it 11 to 10 units. And so since our last hearing, we've created revised plans, new architectural plans, new site plans. And then we've also had a discussion to try to work out the last remaining peer review comments, which we think we could address. So we'll get right to it. I think we have Jeremy, hopefully is still on. And he's gonna go through the architectural plans and go through the changes in detail so you can understand. Have Joe come up and speak about the civil changes, and then have Joe talk about the peer review comments and how those have been addressed. So Jeremy, if you wanna pull up your screen and show the plans.
Yeah, hello, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Jeremy Baldwin with Mogul DeStefano Architects. I will attempt to share my screen here and let me know when you see it.
Yep, I can see it.
Yep.
All right, great. All right, so what I'm going to do is just briefly walk you through some of the changes that we made to the site and to the buildings. First, these are the new floor plans for the farmhouse building. What we have done, and I would like to just revert first back towards the previous design. We had a what I would like to refer to as the back house building. This is the building that we have removed from the plan. This originally contained 2 one-bedroom units. And so this has been removed from the current design. And what we have done now is provided a 2-bedroom unit that is part of the farmhouse building. And so that is what you see in the purple color here on the farmhouse building. So this is the addition to the farmhouse building. This is a 2-bedroom unit, and this is a 2-story unit that is in the back of the farmhouse building. And that is what you see in the isometric views right here. What we have done is still use the same aesthetic that we have on the farmhouse style of the barn and the farmhouse, and kept with the same nature of what we had in the original intent of the design. Additionally, and I'll let Joe Pesnola speak to this more eloquently, but we have pushed the farmhouse building back 5 feet additionally from the roadway and the sidewalk out on the frontage. And by doing this, what we have done is we've reduced the original unit count from 11 units to 10 units. And we have reduced approximately 430 square feet of impervious area to this from the buildings of what you originally had on the back house building, which we removed. So on top of that, we have provided revised renderings of what the aesthetic looks like from the main frontage and what it looks like in the back side of the site. And I will toss it back to the team in the room, and I'm happy to answer any questions that may arise. Thanks.
Jeremy, could you repeat the reduction in impervious area?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
You had a number, you had a figure of the
430 square feet.
Yeah, it was approximately a reduction of 430 square feet by of impervious area that we've reduced it by.
Yeah.
Jeremy, the 3-unit dwelling, that was originally a 2-unit dwelling, and you added a 3rd unit to it, correct?
That is correct. This was the original floor plan. What you see here, it had a unit on the ground floor, and you would access the 2nd unit to the on the 2nd floor through that stairwell. Now, this has not, we have not changed this design whatsoever. What we did do was add what you see in the purple and removed where we had 1 bedroom window over here, and we've moved that bedroom window over to the side, and it allows us to combine that that additional unit now.
But you didn't move that unit further away from the sidewalk. You left it exactly where it was.
So the building moved back, the building itself, the design remained the same, but the building moved back away from the sidewalk.
The 3-unit moved back, not just the farmhouse.
Yeah, so there was 2 and 2, and that was, there were 2 and 2 buildings, and that was along the center bridge. And now we've combined the 2 and 2 into 1 3-unit.
Yep.
And that moved back away from center bridge.
So do you know how far it moved back from the sidewalk? Do you know what he?
Yeah, I think he said 5 feet. Jeremy said 5 feet.
I thought you said 5 feet for the farmhouse. It's 5 feet for the.
From center bridge.
Farmhouse is the 3.
I would say this is the, I'm
The
taking this.
barn
as
is the
farm.
big building, right?
Oh, I'm taking this is the farm.
No,
The barn
it's
is
the
the big
barn.
building, the
Yes.
farmhouse is the fourth one.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Farmhouse is
All right.
confusing, yeah.
All right.
Farmhouse, barn, correct?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
okay.
Was there any change to the barn? I didn't notice, so I didn't think so. Okay, so architecturally same, location same, even looking at adjusting the other 2 filters.
Correct, yeah. I don't know, we might want to get the civil plan, Jeremy, did you have the updated civil plans?
I don't have it on me at the moment. No, I don't.
USB here, we'll plug it through the. Okay. Yeah, this is it, yeah. You want to section 4?
So, it's a little serious.
Yes. Right, that's. Yep. This went back. That's a little too. On the little ball. So,
So it's time to your turn.
Oh, yeah, the line.
So here's the site plan that shows the site, the setback. Right, so the farmhouse has been moved back 5 feet off Center Ridge. There really isn't any other changes to the site except, we did take the opportunity where there's a little bit more green space to lengthen the parking spaces by a foot. So they were 18, now they're 19. And public safety had some issues, but, the length of those spaces and larger vehicles sticking out, so we've got an extra foot there at 19 feet. So that's the only substantive changes to the site plan. As far as the peer review, the biggest item that Bethany had was the verification of the soils and our groundwater offset to the reservoir underneath our forest pavement. We did go out there with Bethany a few weeks ago and confirmed soils and updated the design there to her satisfaction with regards to that offset to the water table. One of the other issues that she had was she wanted verification of our approach to how we were modeling the porous pavement and how it worked. And I had a discussion with Scott Miller, who's Bethany's boss, who's taking over for Bethany while she's away on vacation this week. And we decided that we were going to switch to a different approach, which is highly technical with regards to times of concentration versus runoff curve numbers. And I don't need to bore you with the details, except we ran it the other way with a composite runoff curve number. And Scott concluded in an email yesterday, I did see him online, so he can verify this, but he's satisfied with that. One of the other issues was just to verify that we were not within 200 feet of stream. located 2 lots away from us. And we provided an exhibit that demonstrates that we're about 220 feet away. But regardless, that's a matter for conservation to ultimately either agree with us or not agree with us as to whether or not we're within their jurisdiction. So we can set, I think we're all set with regard to that. I think that was it as far as the technical issues. So I think that Haley Ward is satisfied. We're done.
Can I just get your name?
I'm sorry, I should have said that first. For the record, Joe Pesnola, on the Hancock.
So I do have a question with the latest data from 7/26. And just we go from like 3-foot water table to 9-foot water table.
Yeah.
I mean, the
It was one of those,
2022,
yeah,
2024.
Yeah, in the original testing, there was some redoxymorphic features in the soil that were up high, which we conservatively called as water table, and it's in these gravelly materials. It's tough sometimes to call. So when Bethany went out there with another one of our soil evaluators, this was Roger Benedetto, Ross Tedford, and Bethany, they felt in those tests that really wasn't representative of the water table. And if you look at the surrounding environment, in the geography of the area, we're kind of on a drumlin that runs north-south. And if you look at it, it does go uphill as you move north, but to the east and west, it falls off one side to the Nashua River, one side to the wetlands areas that becomes that river stream that we were just talking about. So it doesn't make sense that water table would be high, and that's really one of the reasons Bethany was scratching her head and saying, I'd like to see the soils myself. Which is why she called for an additional round of testing and for her to be witness to that. So that's what Rob and Bethany saw out there. So yes, it's a lowering of the original call for the water table. It's always a question because since we came up with this methodology of using redoxymorphic features to call water table instead of doing the testing in the spring and physically seeing water, it's a judgment call. It's obvious if you have water seeping out of the sides of the hole that's groundwater. But when you're looking for evidence of seasonal high groundwater, there can be differences of opinion in whether or not that redoxymorphic feature, that modeling is actually is actually evidence that seasonal high water gets there. And what I'm saying from the geology of the area is it doesn't make sense. The geology and the type of soil, it doesn't make sense that it would be perched up there. So sometimes you just get these features or these colorations in the soil, which are sometimes can be mistaken for evidence of seasonal high groundwater.
Scott, Haley and Ward just, Scott, you're on, correct? So,
Yes, yep.
You want to stop sharing this?
yeah,
Just minimize it for now.
yeah. There we go.
Yes, Doug.
All right, Scott.
Hello, Scott Miller from Haley Ward.
Just want to get your kind of feedback after going through this. I know I'm filling in for Bethany.
Yeah, we had talked before early on when she was going out to do the testing. She had concerns with the way the soil was mapped out there, and similar to what Joe had just mentioned, did the soil testing. It does let you, using the modeling in the soils that indicates how high the groundwater gets every year, can be done year round. But it is very much an art to figure out where that modeling is occurring, and she is good at that, and as well as the licensed soil evaluator from Hancock. So I think it's a reliable value to have that where they settled in with the groundwater being there. And again, it's year round. It's not a matter of being out there during a high groundwater season or when you do the testing, because the modeling stays the same in the soil year round. There were a couple of other items that I looked at on earlier this week. Joe mentioned, I guess the one that didn't get mentioned is I asked him to add a filter on the catch basins, because that's going directly into the ground. And also there's a perimeter membrane that in the detail it said it would be wherever wetlands were adjacent to the site, and there are no adjacent wetlands within that 100 feet, but I think that membrane makes sense to keep it there. So they've revised the detail to have that there as shown on the plan. And the other item I looked at was the distance to the brook that's down Neck Road, and based on the topography that's there and just the nature of the site, that is 221 feet measured from the property line. So that resolves our comments to date from where Bethany left off last month.
Yeah, just thank you, Scott, on that. What we've added to the plan is in the catch basins themselves. We're putting in a filter cartridge insert in the catch basin. And these filter cartridges will treat sediment, hydrocarbons, other constituents. And it's fairly simple system. You take the catch basin grate off, and it's got a cradle for the cartridge. The cartridge goes in, so when the water goes in the catch basin, it has to go through this filter cartridge. Filter cartridges are checked on an annual basis, and they can be, when they're spent, they can be replaced. And it's just the cartridge is about this big, this round, and replacement cartridges are run about $150, so it's not crazy with regards to the operation maintenance.
Anybody else has been added to the operation?
It's been added to the operation and maintenance in the updated stormwater report that I sent the other day.
That's what I was showing Rob, I don't know if you can answer it, but the farmhouse. So now you have stairs coming off the porch. And the stairs come into the sidewalk. There's like no distance, no space. So these stairs and these, and this is your sidewalk. So they come onto the sidewalk.
They're connecting to the sidewalk.
They're connecting
There's a pad before the stairs start.
So the delivery director was concerned about town maintenance of the sidewalk.
This was like a landing at the bottom of the stairs.
Yeah, it's a landing at the bottom of the stairs, so.
Okay.
It'd be no different than somebody connecting their front walk to the town sidewalk. There's a separation point
And
where
then
DPW ends and.
Is that a concrete pad or something else?
Concrete pad.
Jeremy, can you confirm that?
Yeah, I can reshare my screen if you'd like. All right, just so maybe making sure I'm getting my bearings correct. Are you talking about this pad at the bottom of these steps?
Yeah. So there's no edge where sidewalk plow would.
The
structure is not connected to them.
It is not raised, right?
Okay, that was the DPW director's comment.
I guess the rendering versus.
So in the rendering, you're showing a single step, it doesn't say on the site plan, is that the estimate is a single step or just wondering where the actual
It's
step
gotta be
will
more
be
than a
compared
single
to the
step,
sidewalk.
that's a huge step.
Yeah, they showed like 3, right?
This is showing 1, 2, 3, 4 steps, but the rendering is only showing.
I didn't know if that was just a symbol for steps
Oh,
versus
yeah.
the actual number of.
Yeah.
Right. 4 seems high, that's.
Well,
3 4 up.
there's no way the 1 is gonna work.
36.
I don't think people have looked at that.
Didn't expect it to push that on my house.
But I think what would be useful to know is the distance from the sidewalk to the first actual step.
I can get that.
You can get that now, Joe, or you're gonna get that?
I can get that right now.
Like that help with the DPW's question.
That's in 2 locations, right?
Yeah, it's like 2 sets of stairs, and then
One's back farther than the other.
that's the center line of center bridge, so where is?
And there's no stairs into the farmhouse, there's no entrance into the farmhouse from the side or the back, it's all coming from the front, or what I'm missing something.
That's what it looks like.
Those are just architectural features on the front of the barn.
Yeah, so the access here is to come around front, up the stairs, onto the porch, into that door. Oh, are
What
those?
are those?
Because I wasn't seeing walkways, so they go to your house.
Jeremy, do you know, is there any back entrances on the farmhouse?
Looks like there's 2 doors, they go to grass and they go on a walkway.
So if we're talking about the farmhouse, we have an entrance into the lower unit over here near the kitchen on the left-hand side. Then there's also another access point through the corridor and that also accesses the stair up to the 2nd floor unit. And then we have a ramp up to this farmer's porch also right in this location.
Okay, so that's. So this is a. Sorry, you can't see what I'm putting in. Okay, so on the side there, I was missing that from the.
That's missing it on the drawing.
I was missing that from the drawing, yeah.
I mean, maybe these
So
are.
the porch doesn't all wrap all the way around to the door to the back unit, then the porch now stops
With the back.
halfway, yeah, like halfway down the front unit. You've got a handicap ramp to get up. So, is that on the site plan, is that planned to be sidewalk with a walkway that comes from the driveway or the parking area over? I must have missed it.
there's a sidewalk along the park, so, yeah, there need to be a little connecting piece.
Yeah, so I'm not seeing that,
To that back door.
I'm not seeing a connecting piece in here, this all looks like porch to me. Maybe I was reading it wrong, I was reading it wrong.
No, there's not, we're missing that connection piece.
And then also looking at the architecture, it looked almost like there was a door
There and across from it too.
there and across
Yeah.
from it. And I'm not seeing it.
Well, actually, Jeremy, is that, some kind of utility closet? Is at the end of the porch?
Yes, I'm sorry. I wasn't able to hear every detail on that conversation there, but this right here, that is the sprinkler room, correct?
Okay, so that's sprinkler room, but you still need paved access to the ramp.
So where's the ramp?
That's it right here. This is.
Right here.
Access from the porch.
So-
That is essentially the ramp.
But that ramp goes down the ground from the front porch, right? So that there's handicap access to the lower units. So the space above your arrow to the sprinkler closet, that's at ground level, not.
Correct.
Okay. So is it planned to be grass from the sidewalk over into there? My assumption is that's gonna be paved. Or whatever your walkway is. And I'm just not seeing that connection in the plan. The plan looks like there's a walkway that runs along the side, and then there's a grass strip, so.
We've got there's a door here, and a door here, we need to put a connector here.
Connector there with steps and then a connector on the backside. And then the question is, if it's going into that green space, which is.
Yep.
Sorry, Jeremy, we're talking and pointing to a screen and you can't see.
Yeah,
So
no problem. But I think I'm getting what you're saying. I think you're getting at how are we connecting back to that sidewalk?
there, and then the other two doors, and maybe it's on a different plan and I didn't see it. This is the one I spent the most time on.
But then it's the landscaping plan where
Does it
those
show
two
the-
doors are, it
Yeah,
shows
it's a-
trees on both sides, so there's no way you can have a door.
If you go to the renderings, Jeremy, you actually show what the path is.
But you've got trees.
Yeah, you got trees there, so how do you have doors?
We need to.
It needs to get big, right? And then, across the lawn, you're gonna do a walkway across it, how is that going? We didn't show that on the.
Jeremy, what's your feelings? You've got in the living room on the lower level of that back unit. You've got doors on both sides of the living room.
That's the.
Correct. These two doors, correct.
So the rend.
What's your vision there as far as what's the one that would be the entry door? Is it a secondary means of
Correct.
egress?
Yeah. So yeah, we do need both the doors for two means of egress. Correct.
If you go to the renderings, you can actually see it. So go.
A1.00.
Yeah, go to the renderings, Jeremy.
So this is all.
Oh, who has control of the screen?
It's on the side.
Oh, there you go to the
No,
renderings.
that's Jury's. That's all signed.
So
Oh,
where
is
are
that
the
yours?
trees?
They're on, at least in this. Right. This doesn't match the rendering. It's
okay.
right.
Oh, no, okay. Jeremy, can you go to the renderings?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So go here, so you can actually see it here. So there's the walkway.
A1.00 upper left hand corner rendering probably shows it the best in terms of. Yeah, so that upper left detail.
That shows that side, and this one shows the inside where it's looking like you've got like a slider or something like that.
So we've got to update the landscape plan and get some kind of walks to those. And then something in.
Into your sprinkler closet. So you're keeping the roof over that section, but you're gonna make sure you get your access.
Shows the grid, there's the ramp. Yeah. And then there's the door into the school. And the distance on these front as is, 2 feet from the back sidewalk to the, stairs.
And that's on both sets of stairs, it's 2 feet essentially.
So this landscaping plan doesn't coincide with what you just showed us?
Yeah, the landscape plan has to be updated.
Has to be
to indicate those 2 doors. And we need to put a walkway.
Yeah.
And it looks like a little patio or something where the rendering actually shows off the back door into the one. It's updated. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, just a bigger picture, we wanted to make sure that the board was happy with this new, design, with the understanding that there might be some, nitty-gritty things we need to do to have come up with final plans, but we wanted to make sure, big picture, the board was happy with this concept.
Some more access in the back.
It's a green space. Integrated bike rack.
And then the parking space count remains the same as it was originally.
And more space, the parking space have more space.
So we won't have that issue. Are we figuring putting bump stops in to
The hanging chad issue or whatever we had, yeah.
the yeah, for
The bumpers,
yeah, the button up along the sidewalk.
So did you say is the driveway now lengthened or just the parking spaces?
Parking space.
So the driveway itself is still
Driveway
20
stayed the same and we just went 1 foot deeper on the parking.
Okay.
So I was gonna ask, you got that by going deeper into the lot so that the radius of curvature through the main driveway is stayed the same from all the traffic circumstances. Yes.
Are you able to, thinking back to Police Commissioner Moody's comments about the safety of both the ability of emergency personnel coming in and out, accessing the buildings, does this design improve on that? For instance, the distance between an entrance to a unit and really ambulances and fire apparatus or whatever would be parked. Was that taken into consideration?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that was the conversation we had in the last hearing, was that this design of eliminating that extra building in the corner frees up that open space and provides ample access to both buildings.
Interesting. I haven't just been into that. Public safety, for comments on revised plans and streets.
Regardless of, we got obviously a lot of information, so we knew that coming into this, right? So I think we're still, we gotta dig through that.
Right.
I do wanna, I know we're late. I want to time for public comment too, and I think obviously we're set to meet in 2 weeks again, which I think that gives the sample time.
Right.
To review everything we got over the last week. Based on our last discussion, we did forego public comment. I want to be respectful of the residents of the town and just speak their opinions. So I think that's what I thought is wanting kind of everybody's consensus. Let's go to public comment. I think we have a lot to digest this week, meet in 2 weeks, and we got a quick turnaround, right? Because we're September 19th is our deadline, I believe, at that point.
More closing area than the 19th.
Yeah.
decide and just render a decision on the 26th.
So I reviewed, Brian's, like, a staff member, where we have these various dates listed, so he's correct, we scheduled a further meeting on September 5th. The applicant granted an extension of the 180-day deadline to close the public hearing to September 19th. But then by statute, once you close the public hearing, you have 40 days, 40 days to render a decision. So I do recall some discussion about how there would potentially be another meeting as soon as the 26th, which would only be a week later. But that's only 7 days later, you've got 40.
Right.
So you're not under the gun, I'm not suggesting you drag your feet by any means. But you have some additional time once the public hearing is closed. Something else you can also discuss, and we've had this discussion amongst this board in past projects, is whether you want to begin drafting a decision, whatever that decision may be, approval with conditions, denial, during the public hearing process before you close the hearing, which you always have the ability to do. The only added advantage to doing that is if questions arise through that process about the sufficiency of a condition, whether a condition would render the project uneconomic, whether something is just practical or feasible, you can get new information from the applicant in response, which you would not be able to do once the public hearing is closed.
Right.
So just keep that into consideration as you look through these coming dates and deadlines.
I guess my hope would be is as we went through this, and we're, depending on how we're going, right? But if we're going through, talking through, sorry, I spent tonight, but the qualifications, I'm gonna call it, right? I know that's not the right terminology, right? I would hope at that point that maybe the applicant would be willing to maybe extend it so we could have a constructive conversation.
To add to that consideration and to add that to the conversation, I think if you're willing to direct council to start drafting a decision with approval, then we're more apt, more willing to extend the period and maybe even provide a further extension to the next public hearing so that we have time to draft a decision. At this point in time, I'm looking at this and I feel comfortable that we're meeting your peer reviewers' comments and the big issues, and I understand that these plans are still subject to review and there might be other comments that trickle in. But I feel that we've addressed the substance of things, and any minor thing that might come up, we can address as we're drafting the decision. So one of the considerations is if you direct council to begin drafting a decision with approval, then I think we would be more willing to extend the time, put a hearing that's down the line, maybe even further than September 9th, so that we have time to start drafting the decision, so that we can go back on one hearing, see anything else that's come in, and then also talk about the decision. I think that might just be more effective. This has been a long process, and we have a hearing. My client has to bring his lawyer, he has to bring his engineer, so.
And I'm sorry I spent extra money.
So we want to try to be as effective as possible, and so, that's the beauty of drafting the decision when the public hearing is still open. If the police department has a suggestion for a condition, while the public hearing is still open and council is drafting the decision, they can just incorporate those conditions as we go.
I just asked you again about the dates. So you're saying September 19th, we would close the hearing?
So the only hard, fast date or deadline we have today is September 19th. We would typically have a 180-day deadline from the date that this board opens the public hearing to close the public hearing. That date is now passed. The applicant's granted a couple of extensions, and the extension currently runs through, per this correspondence that was filed by the council, through the 19th. Nothing would prevent the applicant from extending that beyond the 19th. I think the question that the board has to ask itself tonight is, where are we in this process? So you can decide tonight, you have another meeting scheduled for 2 weeks from now, on the 5th. So do you want to give me direction between now and the 5th to begin doing anything, drafting a decision? If so, what is that decision going to say? Is it approval with conditions, denial? If you aren't comfortable doing that, or what do you want between now and the 5th so that you're prepared on the 5th to give some direction? I think what the applicant is saying, applicant's obviously pushing to have you draft the decision sooner the better, right? Because they want to conclude the process, and that's fair. I think the applicant's also telling you what most applicants would tell you, which is that if your desire is to be working through a decision with the public hearing still open, they're glad to grant another extension even beyond the 19th if they see the writing on the wall and you're negotiating an approval with conditions. If you tell them that you're going to instruct them to draft a denial, they're not going to give you 1 day beyond. That's a definite thing. They don't expect you to, right? So that's really what the board has to decide. Are you prepared to move forward? When are you prepared to move forward? What sort of a decision are we drafting? And then give me that instruction. I wouldn't be able to have a detailed decision drafted with the holiday, and I've got a couple days off in between now and the 5th. But I could certainly have the structure of the decision drafted. I mean, we're going to be working with the structure that this board has used, or previous versions of this board have used, different members maybe, on a number of different projects in recent years. You have some standard conditions that you will incorporate. There's some procedural history that I already know.
Yeah.
So I can draft all of that, and then I can incorporate some specific conditions that I have in my notes based upon the multiple public hearings we've had. But there's still going to be some open conditions that we're going to have to talk through. We've discussed issues during this process like sewer capacity and sewer connection. You're discussing matters now like consistency between landscaping plans and civil plans and renderings and perspectives. With the hearing open, that still gives the applicant an opportunity to provide updated plans. I'd much prefer to have a consistent set of plans and to condition the approval on that consistency existing in the future, because then you're placing all that obligation on your building commissioner to look at these plans side by side and be sure that he's not missing anything. But there's time to do that.
So that would be the 19th if we close the hearing, and then what would the 26th be?
Yeah, originally had that for. That's our normal.
That's our normal.
I think this is a normal meeting date, but the 26th is not a deadline for any purposes in connection with this project. It's just a meeting. In fact, I wouldn't necessarily suggest, even if you opted to proceed with the meeting on the 5th and then have another meeting on the 19th and close the public hearing on the 19th, if you didn't close it on the 5th, I wouldn't suggest meeting again a week later. You're probably going to require more time to fine tune the decision.
Yeah, because I'm going to be gone the 19th and the 26th, so I got to figure out how. No. I gotta make it work for them, and I gotta make it work for me, so.
So it sounds like we need to start between now and the next 2 weeks is start to, as a board, come together in what direction we're going, and to then give Adam time, and then hopefully at that point going in a positive direction or a potential approval. Then that gives us, obviously gives the applicant a sense to want to work with us to get this thing correct for all of us.
So you don't think we can do that tonight? You don't think we're at a point where we can give Adam some sort of.
Eric's not here.
Yeah.
That's the one thing, right? So Eric has been part of this and he's not here right now. I want to give you that. I mean, give me some guidance. Should I wait for Eric to get back? Should we start to kind of formulate which direction we're going in?
So certainly you want to build consensus amongst board members. Having said that, you also know that the quantum of vote required for comprehensive permit is only simple majority.
Yeah.
So if 3 of you have achieved a consensus that you're prepared to issue a certain type of decision, that's enough to move forward. You're not going to be doing anything between now and the next meeting that is going to put anything in stone, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's really your comfort level as to where you think you are. We can make some use of the next couple of weeks and begin to put the framework of a decision together if you think you're comfortable making that judgment call. If you're not there yet, if you want to see consistency between plans, and that's important for you deciding whether you approve versus deny, then you can postpone. If you think that that's just more of a confirmation of something and not anything that's material enough to dictate the outcome, and you know what that outcome is going to be now, then you can give me that direction. You're not going to be voting, you're just going to be giving instruction.
Yeah.
I think Eric at the last meeting was pretty open about, liking it, wanting to move forward, understanding the ramifications if we do deny versus we do approve, he would rather see us, and I tend to agree with him, approve with conditions than to go down the other rabbit hole and deny and end up, an
Keeping
appeal.
off drafting what that might look like is the final approval. He'd have a chance to weigh in on it at the next meeting, right? So it just stop us with people that start down the road and doesn't.
So I don't have a problem with asking Adam to start putting the things together. I'm comfortable doing that at this point. And I know there's landscaping plans and there's things that have to be, and there's gonna be conditions that we've gotta talk about, but at least you could start putting something together, because.
And I guess the only thing I'd say is I sort of jumped up because we were talking about dates and I didn't want to get too far on that. But Mr. Chair, you also commented on opening it up to the public. So you may want to do that and see where you stand after public comment in terms of deciding what the next steps are.
Fair enough. Okay, so I'll start with public comment in the room first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, ZBA, Ben Timon for Jan Curzolo Mellows and John Mellows at 12 Neck Road across the street. So my friend attorney Alvin talked about the big picture, and I'd like to talk a little about the big picture too, because when we were here in June, several of you, I think quite appropriately, stepped back and looked at this project and said things like, I don't know how it's gonna work. Everything will have to work perfectly in order for internal traffic circulation, safety concerns, and other features of the design to actually function. And you were rightly concerned about comments from Chief Moody, and I have those comments, they were brought up tonight. I mean, Chief Moody said in May that his department was insisting upon unobstructed 20 feet of width of the internal driveway. Now, the hanging shads and so on discussion that came up, that was about a design, a plan that the developer put together that showed large SUVs with their bumper intruding into that 20 feet of space. But as Chief Moody said in his letter, Suburbans are more than 19 feet long. Certain size pickup trucks are 20 feet long. And so that is among one of the seemingly intractable problems of this new design, where, I mean, Chief Moody will weigh in presumably on the new design, but there still isn't 20 feet of unobstructed width of the driveway, which is something that he made very clear back in May that the fire department in particular would require. So there's not a lot that's actually changed substantively between the time that many of you in June were saying, I don't know how low units are gonna work. One thing that hasn't changed, for example, is that the barn building is still inches from the sidewalk. Another thing that hasn't changed is that the sidewalk is on the site, even though both the DPW and Haley Ward at one point recommended that the developer be required to move the public sidewalk off of private property and onto closer to Center Bridge Road. That's been unresolved. And what's happened from the unit count perspective? The developer, really motivated at least in part in an effort, let's face it, to not have to reveal their pro forma, went from 8 market rate units and 3 affordable units to 2 affordable units and still 8 market rate units by changing their subsidy program to a 20% threshold. So it really was no, great gesture of goodwill on the part of the developer to lose an affordable unit that is going to provide less revenue for them. And I think respectfully, and I said this at the beginning of the hearing many months ago, that this board in a million years would very likely not approve an 8-unit market rate special permit proposal for a half-acre site. And I understand 40B, I've been doing 40B law a long time, as a lot of people in this room have. So I understand, the ratios and so on, but you're talking about a market rate development of 8 units that you never in a million years likely would approve for this small site, plus just 2 affordable units for, I don't know if there'll be a local preference, but to the extent that the affordable units are there as a way to allow, a Lancaster teacher or firefighter and so on to be able to afford it, time with their children, bless you. They've now dropped that down to 2. So these are intractable problems that still remain, and when Attorney Alvin talks about big picture, I would respectfully ask you to think about that and step back and look at the big picture. It's still too much for the site. We submitted a letter about density back in April, and we said in that letter that density itself is not a basis to deny, but boy, it's a red flag when you have now 20 units per acre density. And in that letter, we pointed out the research that we did where we couldn't find a comparable development in a small town like Lancaster that had greater than 12.6 units per acre density. This is 20. even the MBTA Communities Act, which requires, high density, multifamily housing, is 15 units per acre. So this is 20, it was 22, now it's 20. It's still just too much for the site. And so I would ask that you certainly don't put any writing on the wall yet about an approval, because this project should be denied. And the other thing I would, just mention respectfully is, please don't be unduly influenced by the perceived 40B hammer. Because yes, we know that the Housing Appeals Committee can approve, and has approved, projects that have been denied. I'd be flabbergasted if a project this ambitious would be made even more, intense by the Housing Appeals Committee. And certainly if this board feels uncomfortable with a lot of the red flags that are still there, like the public safety is brought up, like the DPW is brought up, and that, Dan Merrick, our engineer, is on the Zoom as well, and I think we'll ask to speak on the stormwater issues. If this board is uncomfortable that this project does not meet appropriate standards in those areas, then you should deny the project. The HAC has upheld denials on scientific issues and well-supported denial decisions. And I just ask that you don't feel like you are, you shouldn't feel cowed at all by 40B. And I realize that I'm a board member in my town. I realize that these are tough decisions to make. And you have people maybe telling you that, look out, the HAC may impose a even worse project. I don't see it, and I think you should go with your instincts, look at the big picture, and give very, very strong consideration to just denying this project is inappropriate for the site. Thank you.
Anyone, Dan, before I get to you, saw your hand raised, anyone else in the room?
Martin Moore, 181 Century Road. I would just say, what he just said, I totally agree with it. You folks have done a great job trying to look at all the details of this project and couple that with your knowledge of Lancaster and what it means to live here. So, and I thank you for that. But it is, the barn is still there, it's just too big for a half-acre lot. And there's all kinds of other issues that never seem to get ironed out. We go around and around and around in circles, and it never really really changes. So a little bit more thought and a little bit more getting the details and making sure that the numbers and whatever they're giving us are solid before you move forward. Any kind of decision would be great. Thank you.
Martha, was that 131?
Yeah.
So, Dan, you had your hand raised and looks like it got lowered. I know you were the first one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dan Merrick with Legacy Engineering, here on behalf of some of the abutters. Just want to throw something up on the screen here for you. And I know this has been discussed tonight by your peer review consultant and by the applicant's engineer, but I just want to point out that the applicant's engineer indicated that, number one, this is a drumlin, which is right, but a drumlin is not comprised of gravelly soils. It's comprised of glacial till soils. And glacial till soils are funny soils. You can go out in July and August right now, and I was actually at a site this morning in very similar soils, and I dug a hole 9 feet deep, no groundwater. But I know, with my 30 years of experience, that when I go back in the springtime, groundwater is going to be 3 feet below grade. That's the way glacial till soils typically operate. And that is what the applicant's engineer concluded in their spring of 2022 observations. Russell Tedford, who I believe works for Hancock, and based on LinkedIn, he's a professional engineer, he's a soil evaluator. He concluded that the seasonal high groundwater for the large porous pavement system is at the bottom of the porous pavement system. So based on all of my experience with glacial till soils, it is exceedingly common to have seasonal high groundwater 3 feet below grade, not 8 feet below grade or even 5 feet below grade, 3 feet below grade. And this is a really important topic because, you know, if you make a judgment based on something that you see in July or August, and then you go and you build the system, and then March or April rolls around and the system's underwater, literally underwater, you look in the system and it's full of groundwater, you now have a drainage system that is completely non-functional. It's not doing its job. It's not providing the required treatment. It's not providing the required infiltration. It's not protecting the environment. So this is a really important topic. I understand you're being given different viewpoints tonight. I guess what I would say to you is if you do go down the road of some type of approval, that I recommend very, very strongly that you include conditions that require the applicant to monitor groundwater conditions through the wet season, which is generally from December to May. And that if what they're saying to you is correct, then that will all bear out that their drainage system will perform. But if what they're saying to you is incorrect, then their drainage design and their, really frankly, their entire site design is not going to work. So I'm happy to go into greater detail on that, any of those topics. If you guys have questions of me, I've been doing this a long time. I've been looking into soils for 35 years, and the kinds of soils that are on this site very typically have high groundwater 3 feet below grade.
Thank you, Dan. And Sam, you had your hand raised next.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Sam Malatis, 24 Neck Road. So I also kind of spent some time going back through the last couple meetings, and you know, I frankly have trouble reconciling the ZBA's comments in those last couple meetings to even entertaining 10 units. Looking back at those meetings, I too heard comments from the board that the site design and parking assume, you know, perfect operating scenarios. I heard a comment from a board member that said, I would never live here. I would never live at this project. I heard comments from the board that there's not even a place to put a lawn chair to sit outside. I heard comments from the board that there's no place for the children to play on site, and even the grass triangles next door and, you know, in the intersections clearly are no place for children to be playing. You know, I heard comments from the board that they might not let their own kids or grandkids, you know, play in those areas either. And these really aren't, you know, passing concerns. You know, when I hear them, the question that comes to mind that I have for you guys is, if it's not good enough for you or safe enough for your own families, then why is it good enough for others? You know, and I can understand you know, trying to bring community development to Lancaster. But these comments that I've heard from the board, they don't sound like this is something that the community can be proud of at the end of the day, right? Community development is supposed to be youth focused first, otherwise it fails, right? And this is clearly not a youth focused first development in any fashion. I heard, you know, there was some comments from, I think it was Mr. Bray, downplaying the child safety concern of the railroads nearby. And I think the comment was, I found to be a bit of a straw man point, was that, you know, people live near railroads. It is what it is. And I can tell you, of course they do. I'm one of them. I didn't realize, you know, how concerning it was to be living there until I was, you know, with my own family. You know, I think at the end of the day, if you visit the site and you stand on the sidewalk on Center Bridge Road and you envision 10 families living on a half acre, and then you glance down the Center Bridge sidewalk and see that there's a rural cargo train crossing, you know, one house away, that I think your perspective of whether or not there's a real risk there would change. If you haven't visited the site, then, you know, you really should take that time and say, all right, you know, 10 families here with curious and fearless children. What is the likelihood that they're going to visit down the, you know, one house away down the sidewalk when there is nowhere place to play on site? I heard comments from, I think it was Mr. Sullivan, who said, you know, talking about the setbacks and trying to find some rationale of, you know, if you look down the road or right up the road, those houses are close to the sidewalk. Well, as you know, all those houses were built in the early 1900s. And they all only have 1 or 2 families live in them, and they all have very large backyards. Clearly, as you're all aware, in the early 1900s, the risk concerns of not having a setback were much different than they are today. You know, I have, and I'm going kind of rapid fire here. You know, I know it's the end of the night, so I'm just kind of ripping through these points that I've had for the last couple months. But, you know, when we talk about going from 11 units to 10 units, and, you know, maybe you guys considering whether or not that, you know, makes a difference, I'd ask whether any one of you could tell us today, you know, what the legal capacity is, headcount wise, of living in the 11 units versus 10 units, to really even understand, you know, what does that make a difference? I'm sure nobody really knows. You know, the couple other things that, you know, I want to say there too, just from my own perspective about the groundwater issue. You know, clearly, as they pointed out, Hancock did both testings, right? So are they saying that the first person that did it wasn't qualified, that they sent out there to do it? They did 6 test pits. You know, 5 of them showed, you know, 3 feet of groundwater, and, you know, those are all to be ignored. I can clearly tell you, no matter what, you know, the comments about the geology of the area are, is that I visibly see standing water in the lawn next door, and in my own yard, in my neighbor's yard, in the rainy seasons. You know, so, you know, that just kind of goes along with the area, and I think it's kind of clear what they're trying to do. You know, with this, you know, the groundwater gamesmanship. You know, hopefully that the board takes some time to investigate that further and you know, really vet that out, because it is kind of a make or break for the project at the end of the day. You know, I'll leave you with these final comments, and that's that I can understand being developer friendly when there is a benefit being brought to the town. You know, and certainly this is very minimal, you know, 2 affordable units. You know, at the end of the day, I just ask that, you know, you guys don't turn your heads on decency. I think that, you know, the community, it's a tough position for you guys to be in, right? You're kind of being asked to make these decisions on behalf of all the other boards that usually get, you know, a chance to weigh in more. But at the end of the day, it's a decision that you guys have to make. I think there is a middle ground between single family unit and 11 or 10 units being put on the site, and it's certainly not 10 units. You know, so I think that's kind of a lack of any type of coming to the table to work and make an appropriate site. You know, I've said this all along, you know, that we as a community and as residents and as neighbors are counting on you to make sure this gets built, you know, as a reasonable size, right? We're not against nothing being built there. We're not against nobody living near a railroad. What we're for is it being done smartly and safely, and, you know, something that the community can be proud of. You know, I think this is just something that it's totally overblown for the site. I think that, you know, they're probably fearful of going to appeals because they know the housing committee is, you know, would look at this closely, and that it would be an unusual, you know, site plan for this type of density in this type of area. So, you know, again, as a community, we're really looking for you to have the gumption to stand up for something like this, you know, and not just salute it through, right? Complacency is not a get out of guilt free card in this scenario. You can't throw up your hands and say, you know, this is 40B, it is what it is. You are the stopgate. There is nobody coming in behind you guys to make sure that this gets done, you know, in a better fashion. So, you know, we really want you to think long and hard. Even if you are, you know, of the means of, all right, we really like to approve something, you know, vet it out with conditioning for, you know, 5 units, you know, approve, but with 5 units in one building. You know, yeah, they might say, well, that's an automatic appeal for us. Well, they're going to appeals with the same plan that they have in front of you now. So, you know, what really is the loss in that scenario? You know, just, you know, keep the community in mind. And really think about this being in your own neighborhood. I get that it's not a massive 300 unit project and, you know, impacting everybody's taxes in town, but if you were in this neighborhood and envision, you know, your own family living on the site, do you think it could be done better? That's what I'd like you to think about. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. Looks like that, so we have a public comment. Just to go back to kind of the original, where we are with this and what direction you want to start to get at them. Start to put something together. What direction? Mr. Chairman, I'm not going to respond to every comment that was just made. I think through the process, we've made our case, and our case is pretty clear that we do not think that this project is too dense. We think that this is an appropriate project for a 40B project. We understand that it's denser than what you normally see in Lancaster, but that's the purpose of 40B. You know, there were two comments saying we don't want to see this done to HAC. It's not because we think we're gonna lose an HAC. We feel very comfortable with the HAC, but we don't want to litigate this, and that's why we decided to reduce the units. Saying that there wasn't a change in affordable units, we did go from 2 affordable units to 2 affordable units, but that's going to be a different adjusted median income. We were at 80%, now we're at 50%, 60%. Yeah. So there is a chance, and we made some sort of concession there, a financial concession at that. So I just want to keep those things in mind. And adding, as this board knows, with affordable units, the rental units, the town's going to get credit for all 10 units.
Adam, there's nothing that says that we can't ask you to write an approval, but a condition be that we only approve 7 units, correct? Or
So there's nothing expressly stated in the law that restricts you from reducing density through conditions of approval. I would tell you that I advise my boards to be cautious in doing that. For example, if you were to issue an approval with conditions that reduce the density from 10 units to 7 units, what does that mean in terms of what the project looks like, right? You don't have plans before you that show 7 units. So are you eliminating one building? If you're eliminating one building, presumably a 3-unit building to arrive at 7 units, is the remaining 7-unit building remaining exactly where it is? Is it being better located on the site? What are you doing about the parking that's proposed? Same number of parking spaces for 7 units instead of 10? You're effectively redesigning the applicant's project through the conditioned approval. My experience with that is, number 1, it's messy. Number 2, it tends to prompt appeals. I also think that a reduction in density that's that extreme, 3 units off of a 10-unit project, that's a 30% reduction in density, is also likely to prompt an appeal. Now, I want to be clear. I have never said through this process, and I hear comments made by a resident or residents, and I feel the need almost to come to the board's defense because I hear statements about stand up for the residents and complacency is not what's acceptable in this community. I've been at 7 sessions of public hearings. That's not what I've witnessed with this board. There hasn't been complacency. There hasn't been a throwing up of hands and saying, well, I guess we have to live with this, it's 40B. And I've certainly not advised you to be scared at the outset of this process because it's 40B. This is not the board's first rodeo, the town's first rodeo, sure as heck it's not my first rodeo. Having said that, I also don't advise the boards I represent to ignore the elephant in the room. There is a reality with Chapter 40B development that there's an expedited appeal process through the Housing Appeals Committee. And the statistics alone are staggering. I beg to differ with some of the comments made about, oh, the HAC, this is a unique project. Everybody thinks their project is a unique project when they deny it. And I don't think that this density, yes, it's a dense site. We've talked about that before. It was dense at 11. You may say it's still dense, quite dense at 10 units. Is it the sort of density that the Housing Appeals Committee has been unwilling to approve? No, it's not. So I think that you have to keep that in mind. I think you have to focus in, and even council representing the neighbors had sort of conceded that you can't simply reduce density for the sake of reducing density, but I think his comment was it's a red flag. I don't disagree that it can be a red flag with certain projects. And so your role then is to apply the 40B standard. If you're gonna look at the density and say, this is a red flag, okay, well, what's it a red flag for? What's it warning you about? Is it warning you about aspects of the project that are going to endanger the public health? Well, tell me what those are so that I can define them in justifying a denial or a conditioning of approval. Is it going to imperil the public safety? Well, tell me how it's going to imperil the public safety, and I will include that in the findings of this board to support a denial or extreme conditioning of the project. Is it going to remove critically needed open space? And I don't mean you'd like to see more on the site, I mean critically needed for, let's say, environmental protection. If there's justification for that, if there's support for that in the record, point it out and we'll include that as justification for a denial or a conditioning of the project. But those are the sorts of standards that will, in fact, cause the HAC to raise an eyebrow. And there is evidence in the record, there are concerns that have been raised, as there often are with projects, by your department heads or officials, fire safety, for example, with certain components of this project and how they've been designed and could they be designed better. And you have to weigh that as part of the final analysis in determining are those standards and one of those standards triggered, and is it triggered to a sufficient enough degree that you feel confident that it's worth taking your chances at the HAC. Do I think the HAC is going to approve something worse? Because I heard that comment too. I don't. I mean, what's going to be appealed to the HAC is what's before you. That's going to be a 10 or 11 unit project. Are the HAC going to come back and say, we authorize the construction of 48 units on the site? They're not. But if you're going to deny the project, when you deny a project, you don't deny it with conditions, you just deny it. And so the risk there is that when it gets appealed to the HAC approves it in this form or similar form, but you've lost your bite at the apple, so you don't get an opportunity to condition the project, seek any sort of mitigation. That's the risk. If you condition it, and you condition it in such a way that it prompts an appeal, we have greater protection. I said from the outset, it's much better to condition the approval of even with extreme conditions than it is to deny an application. But even then, you lose some control of the project once it makes its way to the HAC, because presumably, if an applicant's going to appeal a conditional approval, they're going to seek to strike every condition that causes them angst, or that they feel is going to have an adverse effect on their bottom line. So that's a very lengthy answer to your simple question about can we condition it on 7 units? You can, but there are practical difficulties with that in terms of how the project is going to be designed. And then there's the reality that, you know, dropping 3 units off as a condition of approval off a 100 unit project is one thing. Dropping 3 units off a 10 unit project is likely going to render the project uneconomic in the eyes of the applicant. We haven't gone through that dance where we've asked them to prove it. So you just have to be prepared for what the potential fallout.
So where are we going from here? We have these plans going on to review.
Yep.
After we come back.
Yep.
Get our reviews.
I mean, for additional review, we're waiting for what a re-review for DPW, local safety, local.
On the revised plans?
Yes, but it's not public safety.
Not, yeah, but I do public safety, I thought it was public safety and DPW. DPW is already commented on this now. Okay, I'll take a look at that.
Yeah.
I mean, we need notice to get those comments back. I mean, as I'm looking at it now, again, based on the criteria that was talked about, there are things that are of concern, but nothing that I think at this point could meet, based on what we see, what we've heard from our experts, that could withstand the denial.
Yeah,
Rather, that's the concern, and I think we are put, voice my opinion, we are put in a very difficult position by the state of Massachusetts to deal with our local residents based on something that they proposed. I'm just gonna say that. So I want that to be on the record to defend ourselves. We're put in a very difficult position with our local residents based on decision from other people. So, right or wrong, I'm saying. That being said, I have to deal with what we have in front of us, which is, I don't see ponderance of anything at this moment, right? We could have some public safety or something else that maybe raises a red flag. Me denial, but the direction I'm going is approval with conditions, based on, again, what we would have to have from our subject matter experts in concrete that could stand up to denial. So I'd rather work.
I'd rather work towards trying to draft up what those conditions.
Yeah.
Right, and get alignment on those, you know, in the meantime, public safety adds something else to that, or has a bigger red flag. Gives us an out, but I'd like to start seeing those conditions in writing, they're draft form anyways that we need. So here's my thought.
Yeah, that's run.
Those conditions could be pretty harsh. I mean, some of the ones I'm thinking of, they're not gonna like, but it's what I think we should have in there.
But I'd also like to at least get some of that going while we're still in the.
Yeah, I think,
I'd
like to be able to have a discussion with the applicant. And get it together.
So, Mr. Chair, something we didn't discuss, and this is the way that some boards have done it before. We talked about, I talked about getting some instruction to maybe provide the skeleton, the framework of a decision, things like procedural history and findings of fact. The board doesn't feel that it's quite there yet, but wants to talk about, okay, if we were to approve this, what would those conditions of approval look like? Then I can, you know, at least in the short term, and I don't want to purport to speak for the board, and if you're not prepared to go in this direction yet, that's fine. We could, you know, if we make the decision tonight, you can make it in 2 weeks, but you could make it tonight. You could instruct me to begin to put together, you know, skip over the procedural history and even the form of the decision, but just begin to put together a list of conditions, standard conditions, special conditions. In your former decision, you've structured or you've organized those conditions by subject matter. So you've had general conditions, construction conditions, pre-building permit, pre-certificate of occupancy, water sewer conditions, civil conditions, traffic conditions. So I can begin to pull from prior conditions this board has imposed as standard conditions, but then also some that are specific to what I've heard through some of these sessions of the public hearing. It sounds like some of you may have thoughts for additional conditions. You can either bring those to the next meeting and we review the ones that I'm providing, or the alternative is you could get me individually those proposed conditions. I know we've done it with this board before this way, and then I can incorporate those. Now what I can't do is I can't accept your various conditions, create a master document with those included, and send it back out to all of you privately before a meeting, because that's an open meeting law. So what I can do is I can either bring that to the meeting, or I can provide that to Brian and post it on the website. Once it's posted on the website, it becomes public information, and so the public will get to see it concurrently with you seeing it, and that can be done in advance of the meeting. So that might be a lot to accomplish over the next 2 weeks, but I think that certainly I can put that list of conditions together and get it to Brian if you do want to post it. 48, 72 hours before your next meeting, which would be effectively like your next meeting is 2 weeks from tonight.
Yeah.
So if I were to, get those to Brian by the end of next week, you have an opportunity to post those, a few business days in advance. So that's one way you could go.
That to me is more valuable.
That's more valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would simply ask the opportunity that we be able to have our own comments to the decision. Obviously, there's conditions that we may object to because we may say this makes this project uneconomic. We have a serious problem. So I would respectfully ask that I be able to work with council on providing my own comments. They might be just comments clarifying something that our engineer knows that the council doesn't know, but they might be our own comments to say, we don't think that this condition makes sense. Or we might say that this condition is objectionable. Obviously, it's up to you whether you accept that or not, but we would like to have some say in drafting the decision, just to make it a stronger, better decision for everybody.
Which I think is why we wanna start that now, so that we're still in the open meeting.
I agree, and again, as I said in the beginning, I'd be willing to extend the time periods if I think that we're heading in the right direction. I'm feeling a little on the tilt here when we're starting to talk about conditions, about reducing units, and so, I don't feel good about extending things now, but if we head down the right path, then certainly that's in the cards.
And so when I prepare, this is the direction I get when I prepare with the conditions. In addition to posting it publicly, there's no reason why those that are in the room tonight, including counsel for the waters, counsel for the applicant, can't receive courtesy copies at the same time. Certainly happy to solicit any feedback, and we can discuss that at the next session of the public hearing.
Yeah, I have no issue with that. I think that's full transparency. Yep. We have to vote on directing, Adam, or can I just tell you to do it? Exactly what you said.
It doesn't require a vote if there's no objection. I don't think that formality is necessary, but if there's a consensus that that's the way you'd like to go, then I can do that.
I think, that's what.
Yeah, it's not binding you, they're proposed conditions, same way they're not binding the applicant, who might not like what they say, they're not binding you to issue an approval. You could review the conditions and decide after another 2 hours of discussion of conditions that you're not gonna go in the direction of approval. You could decide you wanna scrap all the conditions and start fresh. So it's not a binding exercise, it's just getting the ball rolling on what could potentially be an approval of conditions.
Can I just, some of the conditions that I think I would like to see is do away with the snow storage and have the snow removed for every storm. But by doing away with the snow storage, we could increase the width of the roadway. Because now we've got another 6 feet, so we could actually probably add another 4 feet. Because we don't need that 6 feet of area that's never gonna hold snow anyways. So that's one of the things, and then the other thing that I think we really need to look at is the relocation of the sidewalk. The sidewalk belongs to the town, it ought to be on the town property. It ought to be, moved to the town property. And that doesn't render it uneconomical, correct?
So I don't know, because we haven't seen the pro forma, and we haven't seen, more importantly, comparative pro formas, because we haven't done the dance that I've referred to a few times, right? So I can't tell you here, number one, it's beyond my expertise. Number two, I don't even have the numbers before me. I could, at least if I had the numbers before me, tell you what that economic standard is and do the comparison, but we don't have those numbers. Do I think that relocating a sidewalk and requiring a removal of snow from the site and potentially expanding a driveway would render a project uneconomic? I wouldn't think so. Again, we do need to talk through some of those particulars, because when you talk about snow being hauled off site, that's an appropriate condition. When you talk about snow being hauled off site in order to now widen a driveway, now you're getting into that realm of redesigning the project. Now, can that be done in such a way that it's not making anything else move on the site, such that it's an easy enough condition that can be accommodated through a subsequent plan that gets filed and approved by the building commissioner? Maybe we can have that discussion as we talk more about the condition. The relocation of the sidewalk is one that actually raises more questions for me than answers, and that's only because of what's often involved when you're asking an applicant to provide an amenity and to do it on public property, right? So, and I feel like we may have talked about this before, but maybe not. Certainly, I've talked about it on other boards in the past in the context of 40B and otherwise, where boards want to condition the construction of a public amenity on public property, and it's a planning board or a zoning board that doesn't have the authority to grant access to public property. And so you have to structure a condition that says, we're asking that you construct a sidewalk on public property, subject to you getting appropriate permission from the town to do so. And if the permission is not granted, then the sidewalk doesn't get constructed at all. So you just have to be mindful of how that gets crafted as a condition of approval, because this board doesn't have the authority to dictate what happens on town property. I don't know the extent to which any of you had offline discussions or online discussions, or I don't recall seeing anything in the record of these proceedings that addresses the relocation or potential relocation of the sidewalk on the public property and how the select board might feel about that, or DPW might feel about that, the practicality of doing that, what the cost would be, Certainly, we've talked about offsite improvements before. We crafted a condition for Goodrich Brook Estates that required intersection improvements, that were all offsite improvements. But we had similar caveats, if I recall, and we discussed during that process what those improvements would be, and we communicated with town officials to get verification that yes, this is what we allow to happen to the intersection. We've not done a lot of that here in the context of a sidewalk question. So it's a fair point. We gotta be careful about how we craft that.
I'd like to move the buildings, but I know I can't do that, so I know I have to make some concessions.
And I guess now that I feel like I've got the consensus amongst the board to begin this process, I invited you earlier to submit comments to me if that's how we want to proceed. I guess if I could say, if you could get me any comments you might have, and if you don't have any, I mean, I have conditions in my notes, but if you have individual comments and you'd like to get those to me, if you could do so, let's say by close of business on Monday, give you tomorrow through the weekend and day on Monday. That way that gives me 3 or 4 business days next week to find the time to begin to craft those the conditions and get it to you by end of the week. That'd be great. Thanks.
Sounds like this morning. It's 11 o'clock at night. Yeah. Everything good.
Wow.
I guess move that we continue this hearing until September 5th at 7 p.m.
Continue the hearing until September 5th.
I will second. Second, but covered. Okay. Discussion here, none. Frank Sullivan. Gene Rich.
Yep.
Dennis Hubbard.
Yes.
Rob Alex. Yes. 4. No, because he's not part of. He's not part of this. Yep. So now, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second, Dennis Hubbard. Okay.
Yes.
Discussion. Frank Sullivan. Gene Rich.
Yes.
Dennis Hubbard.
Yes.
Michael Bray.
Yes.
Rob Alex. Yes. We are adjourned at 10:47.